I don't like to gamble with like, I don't like playing the lottery. I don't like playing poker.
Right.
I don't like betting on sports.
Yeah.
I'll bet on myself though. I'll go all in and all my money and just be like, all right, it'll work out or it won't. And I'll start over again, but I'm pretty sure it'll work out. Or I'd just get a rental car and I'd go to Walmart and I'd get a pillow and one of the egg crates and a sleeping bag. And then I'd sleep with my head in the trunk of the car with my feet sticking out in some neighborhood. And then I'd wake up and be at the event the next day, go out and party with everybody afterwards, go back to my car, it's in the parking lot. And so 90 days in, I'd broke their sales record. So he told me, same thing that I'm sure you've heard from a ton of other people. He's like, follow what you love, the money doesn't matter. He's like, if you love what you're doing, he's like, you're gonna be so much happier in life and you're going to be able to succeed at it so much more.
I hope you get at least a fraction of the value that I got while talking to Danny by listening to this podcast. Enjoy. All right, welcome back to Hustle Culture. I'm your host, Andres Tagliaferro, and you know what this podcast is. It's the podcast for every dreamer, entrepreneur, wannabe entrepreneur. Look, if you're like into the hustle, this is the place. Make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us on all our social media. You'll see the thing right there. I made it like last week, so I'm excited about that. But today we got something super exciting, a conversation with a really important person. My brother-in-law actually works for this person, and this is Danny Braught from Lokal Media. Danny, can you say what's up to the people?
What's up, everyone? Great to meet you. Looking forward to the conversation.
Thank you. Me too, man. I think it's gonna be fun, and I'm interested. I love talking to, I try not to niche down this podcast with like all video or advertising people, but I just can't help myself. I was like, when I see cool advertising people, I'm like, I gotta talk to them, because in nature, advertising and marketing and all that good stuff is problem solving, and I feel like that's such a general, like, universal thing to talk about. So that being said, I want to know a little bit more about you. So for the people watching, they would have heard an intro coming into this, kind of giving an overview of who you are. But in your own words, kind of what do you do? What is Lokal Media? And tell us a little bit about yourself.
So LMH, or Lokal Media, is a full service advertising and marketing agency. But recently we've actually specialized in home services, law firms, franchises, medical, and automotive. Those are the main areas that we work in, just based off of what we've done over the past, since 2014 when I started. We started out very action sports oriented, because before this I owned a magazine that was an action sports magazine. Wow. And I also owned a paddleboard and kayak rental business that we also taught wake surf lessons. And so, it kind of just naturally came about. The way that it happened with the agency was clients of the magazine were asking us to do stuff that was outside the scope of what the magazine did. So I decided to start a media production house based on the fact that we needed to do, were asking us to do video and photos that were outside of what we were doing. And I was like, well, you guys need more stuff, actually. You need to be really promoting your own channels, because this one, social media, is really starting to pick up steam.
Right.
And so I ended up shutting the magazine down after a couple years of having the media production house. And I told them that, hey, you should take your ad spend that you've been spending over here with me already. Yeah. Let us create content for you. Wow. So that way you can put it out on your own channel. So that way you actually own the media, instead of all these different magazines and everything, owning all of your content and killing it whenever they want to. Right. That's crazy. That's a crazy come up. Yeah. I remember Gavin told me a little bit. Gavin is my brother-in-law, for the people. He told me a little bit about you when I was like, thinking about bringing you on, and he was like, yeah, he owned the magazine. And I was like, whoa, wait, that's such a cool, like, random thing to do beforehand. So I think that's amazing. So that magazine, were you covering sports? Yeah, so it's called Borders Magazine.
Okay.
And it was about inland surfing. So everybody that comes from the coast and they come and they're landlocked, or just people that are landlocked but love surfing. And so paddleboarding at the time when we started the magazine was something that was unheard of. Now you see it on Michelob stuff, and you see it on everybody's advertising as paddleboarding. Back up 10 years ago, nobody knew what a paddleboard was. Wow. And so I had actually started at the same time. I started something called DFW Surf with a partner, Tyler. and it was a paddleboard rental shop. We had about 12 paddleboards at the time.
Dang.
Now he owns that business and runs that business solely himself, and has over 120 paddleboards now, 60 kayaks, 40 bikes, and 3 or 4 boats for wake surfing too.
That's wild.
So I started them kind of simultaneously.
Yeah.
He actually brought me into the magazine, and I was brought in at first just to do the sales for the magazine. They hadn't even put out a magazine yet. It was a website.
Wow. Okay. Yeah.
And so they just had the website, and then I came in and I started selling advertising. And so I was just cold calling, and I ended up getting advertisers on board, and I was like, hey, we're going to print in May, right? It's March.
Dang.
And they're like, what do you mean? I was like, you guys told me we were going to print in May. I've already sold, I think it was like $65,000 worth of ads or something like that.
Jeez.
I was like, we need to get something put together. You guys are supposed to be doing this side.
That's crazy.
So it ended up bleeding into, I bought a camera, or I learned how to do a lot of the stuff myself, just so that way it would get done.
Right.
Because I don't like telling people I'm going to do something and then not following through on it.
Wow.
And so, I bought a Canon T3i and started shooting photos. And that's how Lokal Media House came around. Was I bought a camera and I was like, yeah, I could do that. I can take pictures. Your pictures are so incredibly grainy and pixelated and everything that people had on their websites. And I was like, I could do that. And then I realized it was better for me just to sell the jobs and have other people that really enjoy the camera stuff actually do that side of it.
That's crazy.
So it was really fun because the magazine, I got to travel all over the country. I was gone probably 2 to 3 weeks out of every single month traveling somewhere. Especially during the off season when it wasn't busy here during the summer and I had the paddleboard shop, I was traveling and doing something for the magazine.
That's wild.
It was a great learning experience.
Yeah, I bet. How do you even talk a little bit more about kind of starting that? Because, in my head, starting a magazine, it's got to be a lot of groundwork, right? Like a lot of passing out flyers or a lot of or email campaigns. What was kind of your strategy to build that thing? Because it's such I don't know. I feel like I'm an advertising guy, right? I give a service to people. And now I'm delving into kind of a magazine-esque, like in 2021 with a podcast, right? It's kind of similar, in the sense that you're not providing a service, but you're providing content for people without really an exchange of services. So for me, when I try to sell a service, it's a little easier, like the pitch, okay, well, I'm going to make this stuff that's going to make you money. And you're going to pay me for that. But when you're starting up a magazine that doesn't necessarily have, I don't know, the subscribership or any of that, what's that kind of like? Because it's got to be pretty tough, I would assume.
Yeah, it was definitely tough. So what I did was I actually focused on going to expos and events and things like that, where people were going to be, where the advertisers were going to be. Because like I said, my main focus was the sales side of it at first.
Gotcha.
And then I would go to a place called Surf Expo is one that really stands out for me. Okay. It's where the whole water sports industry comes together. It's in Orlando. Wow. Twice a year. It's in January and it's also in September. And so that's really where I got the start. Was I decided in 2013, I think it was in September 2013, I was going to go to Surf Expo, or maybe it was the year before actually, because before that I had another business that was a boat fender business. With 2 brothers. They had started it, and then I came in as a sales guy. Because if you look at all the way back to where I really started, I moved to Texas in 2007.
Wow, okay.
And I was selling cell phones at a kiosk in the mall.
Jeez.
And then I went and I couldn't stand. I swear, my manager, I was like, he's stealing my commissions. People that are coming back for me. Wow. I was like, this is I'm just not going to deal with this. Yeah. So I went and found a new job, and it was AT&T marketing is what it was supposed to be. I went out and I did a ride along with the other guy. Well, it was really door-to-door sales for AT&T, Dish Network, and DSL. Now, don't look down on door-to-door sales. That is the best experience you will ever get as a salesperson or any part of life, is doing door-to-door sales. And so I went to work, and I called my mom after the interview, and I was like, hey, Mom, I'm thinking about switching jobs. I literally just moved to Texas the month before. I had $900 in my bank account and a $600 rent coming up the next month. And I tell her it's pure commission, but it's going to be all right. And she's like, you know what happened to your brother when he started selling life insurance? He went $5,000 in credit card debt. I was like, well, Mom, I don't have credit cards, first off. Dang. And second, I can sell. And so I went in and started selling for AT&T. And then 6 months later, I moved to Orlando to work for Quill Office Supplies, selling business to business. So I was going in a suit, business to business, and walking in, but I wasn't able to leave them like my actual my contact information because we were a third party representative that they almost said that we didn't work with them essentially.
Okay, yeah,
it
like
was
white
just
label type stuff.
Yeah,
like,
we are their boots on the ground, and that's what we do. So then I lived in Orlando for about 8 or 9 months. I ended up becoming one of the top salesmen for Quill. And then the girl who'd started the office there, she got pregnant and decided to shut it down. So I moved back to Texas, and I went to Cotton Patch Cafe. And I trained for 2 days. My ex-girlfriend, she had got me a job at the time because she'd worked there as a hostess.
Shout out.
And I worked there for 2 days. I got my free lunch that they gave me, and then afterwards it's like, this just isn't for me.
Okay.
I'm gonna go back to door-to-door sales.
Nice.
And I went and got a job with TXU, and so I traveled. I'd leave on Tuesdays and I get back on Saturday. And I went to every small town in Texas. I've been to more of Texas than most Texans have.
Yeah, I bet. Yeah, I know Dallas, Fort Worth, and Houston. That's everywhere
I've been to so many little small towns. I broke the record for the sales day and sales month in Kermit, Texas. They literally have Kermit the Frog on their water tower. It's in West Texas. Yeah,
that's awesome.
I remember that day I got attacked by like 10 little chihuahuas in the middle of the street. I'm like having to try and kick them off me because this whole pack just came at me. But yeah, so I did that for about a year, and then I decided that it was time for me to move on. I'd learned as much as I could from that position. And so then I went and got my first corporate job, and I did phone sales, but I had to dial the phone 150 times a day manually. We didn't have auto dialers. It was all manual phone sales.
Your dexterity is probably crazy.
Oh yeah, I was all over it. And so then I told them when I went in there, they wouldn't give me the salary that I wanted. I was really confident after being like a great salesman.
Right.
And so I went in and I told them the salary that I wanted. I think it was like 38 grand. And they're like, no, sorry, we'll give you 35. I was like, all right, under one condition. I want a 90-day review. And at 90 days, if I'm meeting or exceeding my goals, I get a raise to what I actually want to be at 38 plus commission. And they're like, okay. I like that. And so 90 days in, I broke their sales record. So I ended up getting a raise to like 40 grand plus commission.
Fire. That's so cool.
And so I ended up staying in that industry. It was physician recruiting for about 4 years, jumped from one job to the next. And what I really got good at was a lead generation department. And so I went to a couple other companies and built out lead generation departments for them, which is just setting appointments for the salespeople to come in and close. You just get them really interested in it. And then you're setting up time. All right, you're going to have a conference call with Brian at this time. And so I got really good at doing that. So I went into a couple other ones that were like it, built it. And then I remember being 25. I think I lived downtown on Main Street in a high rise. And I was talking to my dad, and my dad's a high school teacher. Okay. I dropped out of high school. I dropped out of college. But I wasn't failing any classes. I had a D in Spanish. That was it. That was like my lowest grade. And my dad's like, well, I just want you to get away from the friends and everybody that you're around. And I was like, but isn't this going to look bad on you? Like you're in the same school district that I'm in. And he's like, it's not about me. He's like, it's about what's best for your future. Wow. And he's like, you want to do business. You've been telling me since you were 8, you wanted to own your own businesses. He's like, so go to business management school. Well, I quickly dropped out and went snowboarding instead.
I've seen photos.
So that was
white, bro.
That was prior to moving to Texas. But I'm talking to him now when I'm 25, and I'm like, I think I want to go back to school and I want to get a degree in marketing. And he's like, why? He's like, you know why you go to school? Because you go to school to learn how to make money. He's like, you already make more money than I do. And he's like, go start a business now. He's like, you're 25, you have no kids, you're single. And he's like, and you have no debt. He's like, go do it now. If you want to do it, go fail. Go learn. He's like, because you'll kick yourself later if you don't, because you've been telling me since you're a kid you wanted to own your own business. And so that's kind of where that's where the whole thing started. And then I had a boat fender business where it was with 2 other brothers, but that went downhill because of their drug addiction. Wow. Ended up one of them on our way home from a show, got a felony for having heroin in the car. Wow. And so that was like, all right, well, I guess I'm starting over again. Well, at one of the boat shows that I'd been at, I'd met the other guy that I started DFW Surf with. Wow. Okay. And that's the guy that introduced me to the magazine.
That's crazy.
And so everything compounds. Yeah. Every single time. If you don't burn bridges, everything just continues to compound. You meet somebody that does this, and then they hook you up with something else. And so that's kind of how it came into owning the magazine. And then I had the magazine for a few years. And the magazine was a failure. It was a success in the fact that I built a community and I built a following around this. Right. I helped people come from one industry that maybe they were in something called flowboarding and they wanted to be in wake surfing, or they were a paddleboarder and they wanted to get into something else. Well, I'd introduce them to the brands and introduce them to the people. And so it was really just about connecting people and adding more value than I was getting.
Wow.
And so I had the magazine, and the magazine is what shifted into being the agency, because everything just kept going digital and less people are reading the magazine, less people are wanting them. So it was just like, all right, it's time to change.
Yeah.
I went to Costa Rica for a month, and I had probably $1,200 for that entire month is what I spent while I was down there living in hostels. And I'd already made a bunch of money. And I was like, that didn't make me happy. So what is it that really drives me? What is it that is the reason behind why I do what I do every day? And it's really helping people to overcome their own obstacles and objections in their mind, to be able to do whatever they want to. Wow. I've been a high school dropout. I started making six figures when I was younger. Like, I was like, well, that wasn't too hard. I can do anything that I want.
Wow.
And so, but that quickly dropped off. When I started the paddleboard company and the magazine, my money went really quickly and I was back to being dead ass broke. Like completely broke. I was behind on my car payments for like 11 months and messed up my credit, but I was able to build it all back up again. Right. You can always start over again.
Yeah.
Like yes, it sucks in the interim.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you can always continue to climb back up.
So for you, that was an incredible story. I think it's first of all, it's crazy that, and again, I'm a college dropout as well. So for me, in my head, I'm like, obviously, like, it just seems like a good option if you kind of know what you're doing. In my head, college is like not necessary. You know what I mean? But for the person listening to this who maybe is in college and is like considering it, or maybe, is kind of in the same area that you were in when you did made all those decisions. Hearing that story, like a high school dropout, made six figures, like was a salesman, and like all that stuff is probably really crazy. But for me, something that stood out to me is like your father was kind of the voice behind making those decisions. And as a high school teacher, I would imagine, if I'm like, if I think of any parent that's probably for that, a high school teacher would be the last person that I would think would be like, yeah, drop out of school, like you'll do fine, like you're great. How do you think, having a dad who kind of supports you in that way impacted, your trajectory leading to where you are today?
It definitely helped to put me on the right path. To be able to just believe in myself that I could do anything that I wanted. My parents have always told me since I was young I could do whatever I wanted. My mom works in the hospital and has her bachelor's degree and runs the labs that pretty much tell doctors what's wrong with you is what she does.
Gotcha.
And then my dad has his master's and his administrative certificate.
Wow.
And so coming from him, it was different because growing up, I was always told that I needed to do that path.
Right.
I really needed to do that path. And like that's the way that I was going to get there. But what I saw growing up at the same time was my best friend's dad was a salesman. He made really good money. They had all the toys. He had all the cool things. And I was like, so sales is where I really need to be. I need to learn how to sell things.
Yeah.
Because that's really where the money is. But my dad was always about follow whatever you love. And he absolutely loves teaching. He's been semi-retired for 5+ years now, but he still teaches.
Yeah.
And he works 2 days 1 week, 3 days the next. He said with COVID, it's not really like he's working 3 days. It's like he's working all the time still.
Wow.
But he absolutely loves it.
Yeah.
And so he told me, same thing that I'm sure you've heard from a ton of other people. He's like, follow what you love. The money doesn't matter. He's like, if you love what you're doing, he's like, you're going to be so much happier in life. And you're going to be able to succeed at it so much more.
Right.
Because you actually love what you're doing. And the money, you're going to just end up being miserable and having money.
Right.
And so, yeah, it definitely helped. And with my parents, just with a strong foundation as well. My parents are very Christian. They're missionaries. They go out and do mission trips each summer. And so just having them there, that it was like, we love you no matter what, just go do it. They kicked me out of the house twice.
Wow.
As well. So there was the hard love that they had to give me because I was smoking weed in my bedroom. My brother's next door. My little brothers are next door, and they're 5 and 7 years younger than me. And I'm 18 at the time.
Yeah.
And they're like, get out of my house.
Wow.
And so I got kicked out. Then they let me back in.
Mm.
And then I got kicked out again and went and lived on my own. And then I called my parents. And when I was living in my apartment, I called my mom. She grabbed my dad's F-350 and moved all my stuff out one day because my roommate at the time had tricked me into smoking meth.
Jeez.
I didn't know what it was. I was up for 3 days. I called my mom as soon as I was coming down, and I was like, I got to go. Like, this is not something I want to be around. This is not how I want my life to be. And I never want to see these people again. And so that was like a really low point. That's when I was 18.
Wow.
And living in my own apartment that was $600 a month for a 2-bedroom apartment. Right. So you can guarantee it wasn't in a nice place.
Yeah.
And so that was like a really low spot, but they always took me in and they always believed that I could go do whatever I wanted to.
Right.
And then I could come back from it. And so, yeah, it definitely was a big thing being able to have them there for me. But I always had my differences with them. Even today, I still have my differences in mindsets.
Right.
And the way that I think that there's abundance of everything. You can go have whatever you want. Everybody else next to you, they can do the same thing.
Yeah.
And I think that my parents are always like, well, don't forget, like, not everybody's the same as you. I have endless amounts of energy. I'll stay up till 3 a.m., get up at 6 a.m. and go to work the next day. Like, it's just normal.
Yeah.
And they're like, not everybody's like you. And I'm like, well, they could be.
That's right.
So
it is a mindset thing.
Yeah, it's 100% a mindset. And so, yeah, those are definitely some things I haven't shared with a lot of people about. But like going from all the way down there to being able to make it back up again and then sliding back down again and then coming back again. And it's just a constant ebb and flow. You never know when things are going to change. So you just got to make sure don't plan for the worst all the time because that'll get you into a mindset of thinking of the worst. Wow, and if you're constantly thinking of the worst is going to come eventually. I always think that, well, that could happen or this could happen.
Yeah.
And so, sometimes it puts me into risky situations because I don't like to gamble with like, I don't like playing the lottery. I don't like playing poker.
Right.
I don't like betting on sports.
Yeah.
I'll bet on myself though. I'll go all in and all my money and just be like, all right, it'll work out or it won't. And I'll start over again, but I'm pretty sure it'll work out.
Jeez, man.
So just making sure that you're betting on yourself and that you have that confidence in yourself that you can go do whatever you want to. And that's what they really instilled in me was that I could go do and be whatever I wanted to be. No matter what it was that I wanted to do, I could go do it.
That's amazing, man. And I think that is, when you're in the space of entrepreneurship where, for the most part, like unless you have like a steady gig with a certain client or something like that, you are kind of betting on yourself 24/7. And if you don't have the mindset of there is an abundance around me and I can get it tomorrow, like one of the biggest like breakthrough mind like thinking things that I had was like, I can sell a video for $5,000 tomorrow that can pay for my rent for 4 months. And then I don't have to worry about it. And I used to think like I need to do, I don't know, $200 videos like a month so I can pay rent. And that is exactly what you were saying. That scarcity, like toxic grind, not necessary. Like I need to do a lot for a little instead of a little for a lot. And once I got that shift in my head, it kind of, life has been a little better. You know what I mean? So, but for you, that's a crazy story. And there's a few questions I have around that. But one of the things that stood out to me was, you're a salesman at heart, right? That's what you do. And you sold different things. You went from selling phones to, TXU Energy. Like, what is the thing to sell, like to selling? Because even for me, I'm, this podcast, I put it up and it looks cool, but like really it's just a way for me to talk to cool people for an hour and learn from you guys. So this is for me more than anyone else. But for you, what's the trick, man? What's the thing with selling? Like, how do you perform well selling?
So I can't sell things that I don't believe in. If I don't believe in it, I can't sell it. If I don't think that it's going to be delivered on the back end and that I'm not going to be able to do whatever I can do to make it happen on the back end, I just can't sell it. It's not going to work. Because really what sales comes down to is it's passing the energy and excitement and passion that you have for something to somebody else. And if you're able to pass that energy and excitement, you're going to get them excited and they're going to have the energy and the passion for it. But if you don't have that, you're not going to be able to pass it on to them. And so it really comes down to, you got to believe in it and you got to be passionate, passionate about what you believe in. And then just having the energy to be able to pass to somebody else. and get them excited about it, because you
Yeah.
get them excited. And like always my fallback was like, hey, if entrepreneurship doesn't work out, I'm gonna become a realtor. All that's doing is sales. It really comes down to that, which is making people feel comfortable with making the biggest decision of their life. Because buying a house is the biggest decision of a lot of people's lives that they'll ever make.
Right.
The biggest investment, not decision, but investment is buying a house. So I was like, I'll just become a realtor.
Yeah, because that's all it is. I mean, it's you doing what you do at a like crazy mega scale.
Yep.
That's wild. That's crazy. Yeah, believing in your thing. That keeps popping up in the episodes is talking about passion. It's like I firmly believe that like in whatever you do, if you're not passionate about it, aka happy doing it, it's not gonna go anywhere, because you're just not gonna want to do it. So why is anyone else gonna want to watch what you're putting out, or like buy what you're selling, or whatever it is that you're offering to the world? Why was anyone else gonna believe in it if you, as the face and the the person behind it, doesn't? So that makes total sense. Like, yeah. And I love that you put it so simply, because I'm a victim of this, like, 12 steps to Instagram growth, or like 15 steps to like how to sell better, or, like during the little thing about me during the pandemic, I took that whole, like, I don't know, 6 to 8 months. And it's still going on, but like during the peak of it, I was like, man, I'm going to take this time to learn business, like, more. Because I knew like the basics, like, I knew how to set stuff up and how to tell people about my business. But, like thinking, like anchoring, like knowing how to like tell someone like a price and like all that stuff I learned. But
you watch a lot of Chris Do?
Yes. That's the person I was watching. Yes. That's literally my idol. No, I'm playing. But I do like him a lot. But yeah,
he's
like,
awesome.
That was what I was watching that whole time.
Yep.
But I got caught up in that, in the whole, for creatives, people get caught up in like gear and like all that stuff, and like it takes away from the thing that matters. And I think in business, people get caught up in like tactics and techniques and like the minutia of things, instead of focusing on what you just said, the passion, what I mean, like actually wanting to like believe in whatever you're selling.
It's about believing in it, but it's about delivering it.
Okay, talk a little
You've
more
got to
about that.
deliver it. So if you say that you're going to do something, you want to not just deliver it, you want to over deliver. So when it comes to talking with a client, and let's say that we're selling a video. All right, well, we're going to do one video that's 2 minutes and 30 seconds long. Well, on the back end, I'm going to have a 2 minute and 30 second video for them, but I'm also going to have some 15 second, some 30 second shorts that I didn't tell them we were going to edit for them, just so I can over deliver. It's making sure that the quality, the audio is there, that it's in focus. Right. All of those little things, just making sure that you're not overselling something, because all that's going to happen is they're not going to think about that, oh, this is great and everything, but you sold them that it was going to be a Hollywood scale production.
Right.
Well, you brought a DSLR and no lights. Like you don't have any gaff stuff. Like they're expecting this big thing. What normally happens on our shoots is we get there and clients are like, holy crap, I didn't realize how much equipment you guys were bringing. Our equipment will take up the entire room almost that we're in right now.
Right.
And they're like, we didn't realize you guys were bringing this much stuff. And they're super impressed by it.
Wow.
Because all right, so this is like super legit. I don't tell them all of that in the front end. They see it on the price. They're hoping it looks like that.
Yeah.
But they don't know that that's exactly what's coming, because most people don't understand what happens behind production.
Right.
And how it actually works. And I literally just learned it from going from one job to the next and getting invited on other shoots and being like, oh, we should have that. We should do it that way. We should have call sheets. We should have all of these different pieces. And then just doing a lot of research. I'm a Google wormhole person where the other night I was like, I have my buddy who's in South Africa that I shot with for a yacht company. He's also a yacht captain and was on Bravo's below deck.
Okay.
And his name's Joao. And I was like, I wonder where the origin of that's from. And then I started from there. And then I looked into my whole family. Next thing I know, I'm on Ancestry.com checking out where
you buying the $90 kit to like learn everything. Yeah.
I was like, oh man, I just went down a big hole right there. And I spent an hour and a half looking that up. But now I know a lot about it.
Right.
Know where my family came from, and like, well, at least my dad's side of the family and the whole heritage of that. So I get very focused on things, but I was also diagnosed with ADHD when I was in 6th grade and took Adderall forever. I don't take it anymore because what I really realized was that I'm just not interested.
Wow.
I'm not interested in what it is. And if I'm not interested in it, I probably shouldn't be doing too much of it.
Right.
I should either find somebody else that's really interested in that, because I know if it's something I'm interested in and something I'm good at, I'm going to go 100% on it. If I'm not interested in it, somebody else is.
Right.
And go find that person and pay them to do that job.
Wow.
And so that was a really big turning point for me, was just realizing that I should find other people that are specialists in these sort of things and that they really like and enjoy, and stop trying to do everything.
Right.
Because I was more of a people pleaser and I try and do everything for everybody. And then I realized that I can't. I'm at a point where it's like, I have too many things going on. I'm dropping the ball because I'm trying to do too many things. I need to just take a step back. What am I good at? What do I like to do? Because if I'm passionate about it, there's no amount of time that I'm going to spend on it that isn't going to make it so that I'm successful.
Right.
Because I'm going to figure out how to do that.
That's amazing. That's, Chris Doe actually says that's the difference between a solopreneur and then an entrepreneur. Like, a lot of people are solopreneurs and think they're entrepreneurs. And that's the thing, like, knowing how to bring on people and building a team around this certain idea is super important. For you, what was one of the things, and you said you started Lokal with other people already involved, right?
Mm-hmm. So when I had the magazine, my business partner, Chris, he already had an agency. I actually worked for his agency as well on the side, so I could have healthcare insurance while I was starting the magazine. And but his is more of his agency was him and an account manager and then all contractors.
Wow.
And then I would sell the jobs for them. So I had a little bit of experience in it, but he did websites, SEO, PPC, and social media management at that point in time. And I did design, photography, and video. So I married the two together.
Wow.
But it was different. So he ran the whole back end side of the business. And still does to this day. I couldn't tell you how our taxes work and all of that sort of stuff. That's something he enjoys.
Nice.
And then my brother wanted to move down here after he went to film school at Montana State University and wanted to come work with us. And I used to have another partner as well that we bought out on the media side, because we just had different viewpoints. He wanted to go one way and wanted to stay more in the action sports, and he's very big into cars. And I'll tell you, he's one of the best DPs in Dallas. And he's absolutely amazing at what he does, but we had different visions. I wanted to build something bigger, and he was more interested in being smaller and about profit. And I wanted to build something that would impact a lot of people.
Wow.
And so we split ways, and he's absolutely crushing it. He had one of his clips in the Super Bowl this year.
Wow, that's awesome.
He absolutely crushes it when it comes to video stuff. But yeah, so then my brother came in as well.
Gotcha.
I made my own brother vest into the company over 3 years.
Wow.
And so he came in, and he now runs our social media department. He works directly with Gavin.
Oh, that's awesome. Wow. That's
so
crazy.
yeah, I had other people that were good at what they were doing, because that's something I've always been a team player. I played a lot of sports growing up.
Okay.
And so from seeing the way that a team works, my dad was also a basketball coach for 15 years. Same reason that the U.S. lost to France in the first game and the Olympics this year was because they were not playing team ball. They don't really play team ball in general anymore in the NBA. Right. It's more about focused on one person, and they just want the big sponsorships and all that sort of stuff versus passing the ball around. You should have 3 to 4 people get touches on the ball each time before somebody takes a shot.
Right.
Versus if you watch the end of the game in the last 45 seconds, what happened? They got the ball, they shot a 3. Next person got the ball, he shot a 3. Next person after that, it's like you're taking super low percentage shots.
Yeah.
And the key was wide open. All you had to do was just have somebody cut down and get a lane, and we're tied.
Right.
Instead of losing the game. Thankfully, we beat them and got the gold medal.
Yeah, right.
But I was going to be real pissed if we didn't get the gold medal.
When I heard we lost, I kind of, because basketball was like one of the only, I like basketball, baseball, and soccer. And but with the Olympics, I was like, basketball was like the only thing I really paid attention to. And I was like, they lost to France, and every podcast on the planet was like talking about how much we suck. And there was one podcast that was like, dude, we got to make it to where, if they lose, the NBA can't call itself the greatest league in the nation or whatever.
I heard that as well.
And so I was like,
they can't call themselves world champions.
Exactly. Andrew Schultz, flagrant too. So yeah, that was wild. But I was like, as soon as they lost, I tapped out. I was like, okay, I'm not going to watch us lose at games. But yeah, I heard we got the gold, and I was like, all right, cool.
Yep. I didn't watch the game.
Yeah.
I thought we were out.
Yeah, me too. I was not aware, and I didn't care.
All I would do is I'd look up on Google. I didn't watch much of it because I don't have Peacock. I don't watch a lot of TV in general.
Right.
or sports anymore. But I would look at the medal. I just Google medal count.
Yeah.
And I'm like, we're losing to China. Like, do people see they're slowly taking over in every single way?
Bro, everything.
And I was like, this better not be what ends up happening. And we ended up winning by 1 gold medal.
Jeez.
But not the overall medal count. But I think we had 39 and they had 38 gold medals, if I remember correctly. Or maybe it was 38 to 36, something like that.
Wow.
So
let's go. We can win at something.
Yeah.
Maybe not.
But what's funny is I actually played basketball in Europe. So right before I decided to drop out, I was recruited to play on a Christian basketball team over there. And we played all the professional teams. So every one of us was recruited that was on the team. And so then we went over there and we went to France, Germany, and Switzerland. And played basketball during the summer of 2005. And I just remember being over there and we played in France. And I remember this court. We get in there. Our tallest guy's 6'5". We get in there. Everybody comes out. The France professional team. I don't remember which team it was in France, but I look around. Their shortest dude's 6'3". Our tallest guy's 6'5". And we ended up getting crushed like 72-40 or something like that.
Dang, that's crazy. That's wild that you played sports in Europe. You've done like everything. That's so crazy to me.
It's cool. It's crazy how little thing comes together, but a lot of it is also like, I remember watching Yes Man when that came out, and I was like, I'm going to do that. And I just started saying yes to doing everything. And so that's kind of, I slept on the couch. Like when I was building the magazine, I would fly into where these events were going to be. And sometimes I'd get a hotel room, or a lot of times I'd stay with somebody else. Or I'd just get a rental car and I'd go to Walmart and I'd get a pillow and one of the egg crates and a sleeping bag. And then I'd sleep with my head in the trunk of the car with my feet sticking out in some neighborhood. And then I'd just wake up and be at the event the next day, go out and party with everybody afterwards, go back to my car. It's in the parking lot, go to sleep. My dad came to visit me one time and we were in Idaho. And he came out and it was called the Pay at River Games. This cool like River Games thing. And I was like, probably drank 3 beers or something like that. And my dad's like, well, our campground's down here a couple miles. He's like, I'll see you later. I was like, I'm probably not going to drive. It doesn't sound smart. I've already had 3 IPAs. Yeah. And so I just remember my dad coming in the parking lot the next morning and like knocking on the window, and my head's in the trunk. So it's completely blackout. Right. And I remember like walking out and like looking out, and my dad's there. He's like, hey, you ready to get up?
Bro, that's crazy. So I love going into mindset and like thinking and all that. So for you're building this thing, you're passionate about it, clearly, and you're sleeping in your car. For a lot of people, that's not even an option. Like, you got to have a nice apartment. You got to have the, decent car. Like, these are like baseline things that you have to like, you just can't live without. It's a necessity and all that stuff. For you, when you were sleeping in your car, was it like a mental like, man, I can't believe I'm sleeping in a car? Or was it like...
Never. Never was it like that for me. Because I didn't care. Right. My brother that I was talking about, when he was in college, he slept in his car half the time he was in college. He didn't want to pay rent because he could travel more and get up and take photos and stuff. And like van life was just coming around at that point in time. Right. So when I went to start the magazine and DFW Surf, my buddy was leaving and going on a trip around the US, and he had bought a Chevy 3500 van for like $2,500 from the city of Grapevine. He was building it out, and we're going to go travel around for a year. And I was just going to work on the magazine. Well, then I decided that I need to stay around for DFW Surf, and I was going to put my money into that instead. And so I was already into the whole van life and living out of a car and everything. When I started DFW Surf, and then I got fired from my job in October of 2013 because I was still selling and had the businesses going for a little bit. And then I didn't show up to a quarterly awards ceremony. I'm like, I'm getting paid pure commission. Why do I need to come to your company awards? I'm not getting any awards right now. And I'd only been there for like 6 months. I got them. I wasn't even going to take the job. And then I was like, well, if you pay me this salary, I'll take the job. But I have these other businesses. Well, when my manager got let go, who knew about my side ventures, the new manager just didn't care for me because he knew that I was off doing stuff. I'm going into a conference room, taking phone calls. I was like, but I'm hitting my goals. And I was, compared to before when I was like super invested, I was just hitting my goal. And that's it. I wasn't trying to go above and beyond there because I was spending my extra time thinking about my business. And so that was kind of a shift compared to before. Well, then when I got let go, I was like, man, that sucks. I'm making a lot of money.
Mm.
And I was like, well, that's fine. I'll sublet out my room I had a 3-story townhouse at the time with one buddy. And I was like, hey, I'm going to sublet this out to a friend of mine. And so I remember I sublet that out, and I was like, I'm just going to go hop around for a little while. My buddy said I could stay at his parents' house in their guest room. Well, most of the time what ended up happening was I had a queen bed in the office at my surf shop, which was a floating dock on the water.
Oh, wow.
And so I lived in there. And so my mom came in town one time in like 2013 or 2014.
Okay.
And I was like, Mom, we can go stay at the townhouse, or do you want to see how I really live right now?
Mm.
And my mom came and stayed out at the surf shop with me. I gave her the bed and I just slept on the floor and in one of the hammocks. I had hammocks everywhere too.
Nice.
And so I just slept in a hammock. And my mom slept there.
That's awesome.
And she's like, does it not keep you up at night, the little bit of rocking and everything? I was like, no, I enjoy
it's
it.
amazing. Yeah. It sounds great.
I'm used to it. I would just sleep anywhere at that point in time. I was kind of more of like a surf bum entrepreneur where I didn't mind. I didn't mind it at all.
Right.
Still to this day, I don't mind it.
Yeah.
I sleep in all sorts of random places to this day. And people are like, don't you want to get a hotel? I'm like, no, I really don't care.
Yeah.
I'll sleep anywhere. Give me a couch. Give me a floor. Oh, my back might hurt a little bit. I'm in my mid-30s now. It's all right. I'll be fine.
Dude.
I actually slept down. So I've got this like my brother and my buddy and I built this rock climbing cave.
Okay.
Down at my house. It's like it's so it's on a bouldering cave on one side, and then there's like a couch, essentially a couch and a table on the other side, so you can sit there and hang out while people are bouldering.
Damn.
Because my brother's really big into rock climbing, and so I fell asleep not too long ago, sleeping down there in the middle of summer, but there's a fan that blows down on you.
Yeah.
And so I just slept down in the cave. Like
Jeez.
that was probably a month ago.
That's so that's crazy in a dope way, because when you don't have these like, predetermined like needs, and I don't even call it a need, but like a luxury thing, like it allows you, like, that's so dope that you sublet your room out, you're making money, and you're just sleeping here and you just don't care. And that's something that everyone talks about, like in the like, grind like community, like on like, TikTok and all that stuff. Like, man, you gotta sleep in your car to like make, or you gotta do all this stuff. But it's like nobody's actually like doing it. And it's like, I don't know, it's that fakeness that I've always been like, that I didn't like about this community of entrepreneurship. It's like this like fake grind like thing that like a lot of people do. But you do it. And it's like, I don't know. I just think that for whoever's listening, like that's one example of a place of something that people hold super valuable, like a place to sleep or whatever, that really, if you think about it and you break it down, and you can save money here and invest it somewhere else, and you can like the van life is a thing for a reason. Like if you can, that's like one example, but like gear is another example. Like when it comes to equipment, like I can do a lot with this camera right here that's not that expensive.
Oh, people don't understand. You can do so much with an iPhone. If you understand lighting, it's lighting.
It's ridiculous.
If you understand how to light things, if you understand just making sure that your frame's set up correctly. Like there's been a lot of things where it'll come out and there's a photographer. They'll take the photographer and they'll give them their professional photographer. They give him some crappy camera, or they give him a phone. And I can't tell what camera this is even shot on. And you got to really get into it to understand, all right, well, how does this look? A lot of times, like the bokeh, you're able to tell that, oh, well, this is a digital bokeh. You can tell that. That's an easy one to tell. But then a lot of times there's other ways where you can shoot it and it's like, I really don't know what this is shot on. You can shoot so much stuff on your phone. You can get lav mics that go to your phone. Right. You can do so much with the phone. And a lot of times the way that it's put up anyway is you're going to put it up in 9:16.
Exactly.
So it doesn't, you're shooting right now, and a lot of times it'll be in 16:9, but then you want it to take up the most amount of real estate on social media. So you've got to put it into a 9:16 form so that it takes up more of the feed so that more people see it. Because that was a big change when you went from everybody shooting that, or when Instagram had the 1x1s and then they started allowing you to go larger. And that really changed because you're able to take up so much more real estate on the screen. So now you're getting more attention to what you're actually doing.
But that's what I mean. Like, I would encourage people, like, find those things that maybe you can cut back on, or like you realize you don't really need, and like maximize what you can do with said budget or said item or said whatever. Because that's something I personally like. That's one of those things, I don't preach anything I don't practice. Like, I'm not going to tell anybody to live in a car if I'm not living in a car, you know what I mean? But one of the things that I tell a lot of creatives that I talk to is like, man, like I sold my, you know, a lot of people put the price tag behind the camera and they're like, oh, well, that camera's better because of that. Well, I had like $1,000 like ADD at the time and I was doing photo and like, but I was always like traditionally a video guy. And, you know, I just was doing both at the time. I needed a hybrid camera. It did 60p, 1080, and it did, you know, 24 or whatever, but it didn't do 4K. And I was like, okay, I really want to niche down to video and do video production for people. I was starting to work like over there. You could see like some screenshots of like a WNBA campaign we did. And, you know, I was starting to work with these brands that are like, okay, at the very least, I don't need it, but I was like, I should provide 4K. So instead of going and like finding like a crazy $2,000 camera, I went on Facebook Marketplace and I found a Sony A6300 that literally did 4K 24, 1080 120. Like it was like a beast. It was $500. And then I just bought the Sigma converter that like was $100. And I used my Canon lenses that I had. And like that was, I don't know, maybe total, like with a camera and with a lens, maybe $700 investment. And I was turning around $2,500 videos and then like doing campaigns like that. And I'm like, I was so caught up in this mindset of I need to have the most expensive thing, or like, you know, creatives in general, we get caught in that, again, that YouTube or Google wormhole where we're like, well, this camera can do this. Like we don't even have the budget to buy a $2,000 camera, but we're like, yeah, but we can probably do this. But like, if you look at what you have, or even like scale back, you can find a lot of like profit and like just good outcome out of things.
If you want to look at somebody that is a perfect example of that, it's not about the equipment at all. Really not about the equipment.
Right.
People aren't going to watch just because the picture looks nice. How many people actually use 4K? How many people have a screen that can watch 4K?
Yeah, no.
Nobody. You know what you use 4K for? To punch in.
Exactly.
So you can do two different shots at one time. It's out of one camera. You can have two different angles. That's the main thing 4K is used for, because you want some screen grabs out of the video. But if you look at Casey Neistat,
that's the guy.
Casey Neistat.
That's why I got the ADD, because he was using it.
Casey Neistat will take any kind of footage, but what Casey does is he tells a story. He captivates you with the story.
Exactly.
It doesn't matter how the footage looks. It doesn't matter any of that, but he has a story and something where you want to follow along. And that's how he got so big. Ended up selling his company and is out in California smoking weed and surfing now.
Legit. That's all he does now.
That's what he does.
Yeah, dude. That's amazing.
But it's really comes down to like perfecting really the story. If you can really get a good storyline, now the equipment's going to make the storyline better. But now you got to realize when you get into that you've got all the lighting aspect of it. I'm not a professional at any of this, but I listen to all the stuff that everybody else says around me.
Right.
So I know what it takes to make it happen, because you know what I actually had to do when I first started Lokal Media? It's like I'm the salesman, and then I've helped put the shoots together. And I was like, I don't even know what I do. I just know that I sell this, and then I help them out with what they need. Like, well, you're a grip. And I was like, I Googled to find out that I was a producer. I didn't know what I did.
Right.
Like, I had no clue what I was doing. I just knew that I could get people to give me money to do a job, and I knew that I could follow through on making it look good by hiring other people that knew what they were doing. And I would just go help out. And then I figured out that, I'm the executive producer. I'm the one that gets the funding. I'm the one that works with them and make sure that all the pieces are there correctly. And I was like, okay, so that's what I do. I didn't know what I did.
Yeah.
I literally had to Google it.
Yeah. That's crazy.
One of the things in our employee manual, like one of the first things on there in the FAQs is, if you have a question, Google it first. Because I can't tell you how many people just stop it that I don't know something. If you don't know something, it's all on Google.
Right.
Everything.
Right.
Everything you want to know is on Google. Just go look it up. It drives me nuts. I probably Google stuff like, I don't know, 3 times an hour. Like looking up stuff.
Yeah.
I'm constantly just on the search for learning and growing and just constantly wanting to evolve. And so I have to learn, and the way that I learn best is just by looking it up and then trying it out, failing.
Right.
I fail a lot. Another like thing that I was really big into is skateboarding and snowboarding and all the board sports. And what skateboarding taught me the most is I never ever have landed a trick that I tried my first time. Never. I had to fall. I had to fail. I had to fail again. I had to get back up. I'm bloody. I'm bruised. That hurt really fucking bad. I just hit my head.
Yeah.
But I'll get back up again and I'll try it again and again. And then boom, I landed it. That one time that you land the trick, you're like, that's the best ever. Like, but you just failed 20 times to get to that one thing. But most people won't do that in life. They won't fall down that many times to be able to have that one time that they landed it. Well, then they land it once, they fall another 4 times again before they land it again, probably. Mm-hmm. And then you land it, and then now you've got it down and you've got this rhythm. All right, now you can learn a new trick.
Yeah.
But you're going to fail every single time that you go to learn something new. You're going to fail, and you can't be afraid of failure. You can't be afraid of people looking at you like, oh, well, he can't do that. Well, guess what? If you try enough, you're going to be able to do that.
Right.
But you just got to continue to stay after it.
Yeah, just keep trying and keep going. One of the things in one of the recent episodes with, he's a basketball trainer. His name is Nick Graham. He used to train in Denver. Now he trains here in Dallas. That was his thing. He was like, I failed so many times. And I mean, not like it's his thing, but everybody who's gotten some sort of success, that's the thing that makes you better. It's failing. But the key though is like not just failing to fail, but knowing that you got to go and try it again. Because a lot of people fail, they bruise their knee and they're like, oh, I hate skateboarding. That was me. I had a little skateboarding phase when I was in middle school because I lived in this little in Euless, I lived in a little neighborhood, like apartment complex with my parents. And there was this, I guess the crew there, it was a really cool apartment complex because it had like a little park. It was a huge one, really ghetto, but it had like parks and stuff. So like everybody there skateboarded or anything that had to do with like, bicycles or any of that. And I was like, okay, I'll try skateboarding. And I was like into it. Like I had a ripstick. I had this other one called a Soul Skate, which is like a tiny one. I had, a regular skateboard. And I remember trying to land a kickflip. I was like one of the first ones. It was like I fell and I hurt my knee. And I was like, all right, let me try it one more time. This doesn't really feel like my thing. And then I did it again. I like hurt my elbow. Like I hurt a lot. Like I hit my funny bone on like the side of like, it's like a sidewalk and there's like a little wall. Mm-hmm. I hit it there and I was like, curb where it one of those risen ones where like the apartment is. Mm-hmm. I was like, nope, I'm done. And, for me, that was a learning experience. Like, I wonder, I don't think skateboarding would have ever been my thing in any form of the planet. But like, if I would have kept going and I would have landed that, I wonder, like what that would have been. For me, where I got that lesson was in baseball. Because I played baseball my whole life. I come from Venezuela and like, that's the ticket out is baseball. So luckily my parents, we moved to the United States and all that. But the dream was still, you're going to be a baseball player. Like, that's just what you do. And like, cool. So I was super passionate about it. One of the things about baseball is it's one of the only sports where like getting it right 3 out of 10 times is success. You're one of the best.
You got a 300 or you got a 300 batting average. It's like you're successful.
Amazing. Exactly. You get paid millions of dollars. And that taught me, I'm like, wow, like all you really got to do in life is win 30% of the time. And those times you win, it's going to hold value. Mm-hmm. And man, yeah, failing. What is it for you? As I've talked to you, I love you give out this energy of like, again, like you said it. I mean, I just don't care. Like if I want to do something, I do it. There's not like a mental block that like is stopping you from doing that. So I think that's really interesting. But for you, one of the things I had written down was what was on your way up through all of these businesses. What was something you constantly find yourself struggling with? Like, what was that one thing? We all have that one thing that like, is just like, for me, I am naturally like by design, I have to hype myself up to be super productive. I'm naturally lazy. Like if I'm just like, if I don't have like little alarms like throughout the morning to like remind me to do stuff, like that's just my thing. Like if I didn't set up an infrastructure to be good, I wouldn't be. I would just be a video game bum. Like that's what I would be. For you, what's kind of the thing that you found yourself struggling with the most?
Well, like I said, I was diagnosed with ADHD. So I have a hard time with consistency. And when I'm saying I have a hard time with consistency is I don't like doing the same thing every single day. That's why I like running an advertising agency, because I got to work on 10 different campaigns and I'm like, I'm going to go work on this one.
Right.
And I just go and work on something else for a little while and then I come back to it. But one thing that one of my bosses taught me was, the CEO of a company I used to work for, he said that every single morning that I came in, I had to write down a checklist of what my tasks were that I had to accomplish for that day.
Okay.
So still to this day, I have a checklist that says things to do. And then I put them all on there to make sure that I get those done, because my mind's going to go 100 different ways. And so just staying consistent of doing the same thing every single day has always been hard for me. And so I'm constantly doing different things, but always at the same time, it's always stuff that's moving me forward.
Right. Wow.
Something that you said earlier, you're like, we're talking about skateboarding, is that you learned. And one thing that I also really like is like, you're either losing, but if you actually look at it and you reflect on it, you can take a loss, and turn it into a learning experience. If you learn something from it, you're really not losing anything. Right. You just learned and you gained, and now you're going to go back to do something the next time with experience and knowledge.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what that taught me. It was the failing and giving up on that. Tell me that could have been something I could do with anything that I try in my life. Like I could, in with video production, like when I can't get a technique right, like masking or something, like I could choose to give up right then and there, or I could choose to keep doing the kickflip until I land it. And then that was that thing. It's like, and like you said, it's like losses aren't really losses if you learn something. And I think that's the mindset though. You gotta, again, something like a lot of people, they might get stuck in that, like, no, I just lost, I'm gonna give up. You have to have the mindset of, I'm ready to lose. I know Gary Vee, he's like one of the guys I follow forever. He always says like, I look forward to losing. I almost like sabotage myself to lose, because I know that at the end, when I come back, it's going to look so much better. And that's like, obviously there's ways to make that extreme and not healthy, but that's such a healthy mindset. Like I want to lose strictly to learn. And
I never want to lose. I like to win.
Right.
I never want to lose, but I'm okay if I lose.
Exactly.
Because I figured out that I can come back again. You can come back from anything. There's people that you could talk about, guys that have had their legs taken off that then come back and are extremely successful at something else. And it's like, it's really reframing things. So there's an artist that I started following that I saw at Lakewood Bar and Grill. There was like 10 people in the audience. His name is Mod's Son.
Oh, yeah.
And it stands for Movement on Dreams, Standard or None. And so that was around 2010 that I saw Mod. And then I've stayed friends with him since then. And now I've watched him go from being a guy that's sleeping on my couch literally and hanging out after shows to somebody who's now dating Avril Lavigne, lives in Hollywood, wrote a book, like all sorts of things. And I've just watched him fail and get back up and do something else. But it was like around that same time frame that I started listening to his first EP that he put out. And a lot of it was just about like following your dreams. That's all I would listen to for a while. I tell people I've brainwashed myself to be positive. Yeah. All I would listen to would be like reggae music and I would listen to like Mod's Son, but I wouldn't listen to anything. I didn't want to put anything in my mind that was negative. I wasn't going to think negative about anything. And it completely changed my life. Yeah. Because like if you don't allow negativity into your life, everything's positive and everything's good. It doesn't matter if I'm sleeping in a car. It's awesome. I get to wake up the next morning and I get to go hang out and surf. Yeah. Because I'm doing this. If I didn't do this, then I've got to go do this and I've got to do that so that I can have this thing that I think is some staple that I really need. And that's easier to do in your 20s and when you're single and everything like that. It's easier to do that. But that's why it was very important that my dad told me just to go take the risk. If I'm going to do it, go do it. Yeah. And just, if you end up deciding it's not something you want to do, at least you tried. And so just making sure that you try. If there's something that you want to do, try. A lot of times what will also happen is I see people, they go into it, and going into something full force head on is good. But also, just try something small first. You're not sure if you're going to really like it. Getting into like advertising and everything was something I always wanted to do. I just didn't know how I was going to do it. Right. I can't believe that I got into it and I get to do what I do now. But it was something like I remember when I was 18 and I was living on the mountain and I lived in a 2-bedroom house with 7 guys. Wow. So I've always just not cared about what kind of I grew up in a house where I have 3 brothers and my parents and it was always having family over. I have 26 cousins on one side of the family and I think 12 on the other side of the family. So we always had a ton of people around. It's just like, oh, sleep where you can. Yeah. Everything was Like it didn't matter about that. And so I forgot where I was going with that, but
you were talking about you were talking about how, it just didn't really matter.
Yeah.
Like,
and so just being able to have that mindset that it's okay. It doesn't, you can always go to wherever you want to go, but just starting slow. That's what I was saying. Just trying to start out and try something small, try it again, to get better the next time, get a little bit better. And every single time you can rise to a new level, rise to a new level. And that's how, like you were talking about $200 videos up to selling $5,000 videos, going from selling $1,000 websites to selling $100,000 websites. That's a big jump.
Yeah.
Well, from me going to doing one to the next, I also had a lot of different levels that I'd go to. And like Christo says, I'm okay. Well, 60,000, I guess that's the new point where I got to start at.
Yeah.
Let's sell 70,000 and see if we can do that.
Yeah.
And so it just kept going up and up and up, but also the complexity of the jobs goes up and up and up.
Exactly.
And the expectations of it. And you got to make sure that you get it right and that you're doing the things to make sure that you're getting it right. But you learn those along the way, along that whole journey. Yeah.
There's a very big misconception that you have to be an expert at something to sell it.
Mm-hmm.
And, one of the things, I've learned as just, I'm still super young and I'm not there. But as I've been growing, that's the main thing. It's like, okay, well, now I can do animation. Now I can do motion typography. I can sell that. And like, I don't have to be the greatest, but like, as long as, like you said, I think that's the key when it comes to selling stuff like that. It's like, just over deliver. Like, don't over promise. Cause then that's the thing. Like, I'm gonna be honest. Like I can do motion typography. I can't do cartoon animation. And there's a lot of people that are like, just hear that and they're like, okay, I'm gonna go ahead first and try to pitch everybody a $10,000 like project and then not have a crew with me, or like,
and then I'm gonna go on Fiverr and I'm gonna get this dude to do it for me really cheap, and then you're like,
God,
oh crap, this looks nothing like what I thought it was gonna look like.
Jeez.
Dude,
I made that mistake once. I remember I started I focus more on like I'm in the commercial side as well. So like I do a lot of like spots for restaurants and like local like coffee shops and stuff. And one of the first projects I got, I hired, I think I charged an extra $200 for a professional voiceover. And then I didn't even look up like what was like the ranges of people. I remember just Googling, or on Fiverr searching voiceover artists or whatever, American voiceover. And then I saw one that's like starts at like $15, and I was like, So I was like, okay, cool. So I set the budget. I was such a stupid for this. I learned, right? Set the budget for 200 for that. And I was like, I'm gonna make some money off this, and I can just get this guy to do it. Well, not only was the $15 package like stupid, like not good, I had to ask him to do another one. And when he did the other one, I had to click all of the usually if you're new to Fiverr, the way it kind of works for most people is they have a starting price, and then like for anything that's good, you kind of got to check out every upsell. So that's
you wanted commercial licensing with that? You wanted the audio file for that?
You wanted an MP3, not an MP1? Oh, okay. Then it's gonna be yeah. So I had to do it. So I ended up out of my that wasn't even budgeted. I ended up paying $300. And I budgeted $200 thinking that I was going to make money. And I'm like, that was one of those learning experiences where I was like, okay, let me just do my research and make sure that I'm not trying to like do anything wrong. But for you, as you've kind of gone through everything, I'm just curious, like what's one of the biggest mistakes that you can recall that is like, or one of the biggest setbacks that you learned the most from? I don't have many of those, to be honest. I feel like people like you who are just positive thinking, are constantly researching, it's hard to really like mess up really bad.
Well, it's not that, like, a lot of times people will come in and they're like, oh man, this happened and this client's really pissed. And I don't really remember a lot of those things because I'm always focused on the solution. All right, well, what can we do to fix this? We can fix it this way. I honestly can't really think of any. The biggest thing that I can say is what I was told by my financial advisor that I had prior to going into business is, if you're going to have a partner, get your own lawyer, get your own CPA, pay taxes. You got to pay taxes.
Yeah.
I had a tax bill come in for like $10,000 because I used some CPA that was referred to me by somebody else. Make sure you check them out too.
Yeah.
Like more than one reference, because he put on a bunch of extra mileage and all sorts of stuff. And now I owed 10 grand to the IRS. And I was like, all right, well now I got to figure out. And he's like, dude, why didn't you, my financial advisor's like, dude, why didn't you call the guy that I told you to call? And I was like, cause he was expensive.
Right.
Now I see why this other guy was, because he got a cut out of what he got back from me. Well, what he got back from me wasn't correct. And so then I ended up taking like 2 years to pay off this 10 grand that I thought I got back as a refund. Well, I'd already spent the money. Dang. And I wasn't going to pay them back quickly because they're not going to charge me any interest.
Right. Dang.
But yeah, just making sure that you have stuff set up correctly.
Okay.
And the other biggest thing that I can say that it would be a time suck and waster is make sure that people understand the scope. The scope of the project of what you're actually selling to them, because what'll end up happening is you get into it and your scope is way too broad. And so they think that so many things come inside of this scope that hasn't been talked about. You need to make sure that you're very clear on what service you're providing, what they get in this package that they're getting, and making sure that they understand that if it's creative, that revisions are extra if you go past 2 revisions. Yeah. Like doing those sort of things, that's something I still struggle with because I want to make the client happy, and I'll go in and I'll still have the team make more corrections than I should. But just making sure that you understand exactly what you're selling and that the client understands exactly what you're selling. Wow. Because I've gotten situations that have cost me a lot of money because of not being clear about it. And then because I won't leave anything wrong. I'm going to do whatever it takes. And I've spent $10,000 out of the company because of a mistake that I was going to make right. Well, guess what? That client's still with us to this day, 2 years later, and we make a lot more than $10,000 off the client. Dang. But it's like you got to make sure that, and that's another thing, is making sure that you're always making right. If you make a mistake, make a right on it, even if it comes out of your bottom line. Right. Because no matter where you go, you might think this world's huge. You might not have ever been outside your city. I guarantee you, people know people everywhere. I've been paddling out in Waikiki. Somebody looks over, hey, Danny. I'm like, what? I'm in Nicaragua. And a buddy, I went on like an expedition, a 7-day expedition down a river on the east side of Nicaragua on paddleboard, self-supported. Well, my buddy, I put up a picture and I was in Playa Santana and surfing. And he's from Quebec. And he's like, you hear me? Yes. And I was like, no way. I'm an hour and a half from mini paved road. Wow. He was a mile down the beach from me and ended up coming on the entire trip with us. Dang. It's like, no matter where you go, like there might be somebody that's connected to somebody. So don't burn bridges. Just make things right, apologize, and also make sure that you take fault. That's one thing that I always do is I'll take fault for things even if I didn't mess it up. Wow. It's extreme ownership. If it has something to do, I don't know if you've read the book by Jocko Willink called Extreme Ownership. If not, highly recommend the book. But it's about taking ownership for everything. If I'm the CEO of the company and an intern messes up on something, I'm taking ownership for it. I'm not going to blame and put it all on them. No, it's my problem. They're on my team. I'm going to take care of it. I'm going to get it fixed for you. Wow. And always making good on those makes it so that way people trust you. And it really comes down to having people trust you because those people are going to refer you. And hey, if something gets messed up, they're going to take care of you. Don't worry about it. They're not going to walk out on you. And that's a huge thing. Yeah. Because people want to refer people that they like, know, and trust.
Is most of your business referrals? And
yeah, most of it's been referrals up to this point. Right now we're working on we have the problem that most agencies do. We work on everybody else's stuff and don't look at ourselves as a client. And so lately we're about to launch a new website. Nice. We're really rebranding to be LMH instead of Lokal Media House, since we do majority of our services. We do quite a bit of media, but not local, but it's not media. We do SEO, PPC, website design and development, because we only do custom websites. And so we do a lot of stuff in social media management. We do a lot of stuff that isn't just creating media for people anymore. Right. And LMH is just really easy to remember. And to type in. Right. Yeah. It's really easy. So we're switching over to that. We're building a new website. Gavin's actually done a great job. He came in, had this idea for this thing that he called House Party. And we just let him run with it. And Jeff's like, I just let him do it. He said he wanted to do this, and I just trusted him to do it.
Yeah.
And now we have this thing where he puts out a show like every 2 weeks, and it's just getting our team to play fun games. The first one was like trivia, but if you got the question wrong, you had to eat a bamboozled jelly bean.
Oh, dude.
And I don't know if you don't know what those are. They have ones that are vomit.
Yeah,
they
it's
have dirty
horrible.
socks. Like you're eating these nasty jelly beans, or it might be a good one.
Yeah.
I got lucky, and it was a good one.
What'd you eat?
I got Tutti Frutti.
Okay. Nice.
And then like the next one was like the little ring toss game.
Nice.
But it's like one player versus one player. We saw it was on Instagram, and then you move the shot glass back and forth, and whoever loses has to take the shot.
Oh, shoot.
But we didn't use shots doing it. It was just like you lost, and the winner got a Chick-fil-A gift card.
Right. Nice.
And then we just did another one where he screen recorded us playing a video game. Which I thought was really cool.
Yeah.
He screen recorded us playing a video game, but he also has a camera on us watching our reactions as we lose over and over and over again. You have 24 lives. Do you think you're going to get far through it?
Yeah.
I think that one comes out tomorrow.
Oh, dude. I'm excited. Those are the videos y'all been putting out, right?
Yeah. So that was Gavin's idea, and Jeff just let him run with it. That's another thing also like John Maxwell talks about, who's another great podcast, great person to listen to. He sold over 38 million books, like a lot of really great books. And he talks about that, like, if you ever want to grow anything,
Oh, you're good.
if you ever want to grow anything and you want it to be big, he's like, you got to be comfortable with giving things away and trusting people to do it. They're going to mess up just like I mess up, but you got to just trust them to do it and let them do it. And then have, what are your goals? So, or like OKRs, if anybody knows what those are, which are objectives and key results. And all right, what are the objectives of what we're going to do? All right, we laid those out. Here's the key results of what we're looking for. All right, now go try it. If you fail, it's all right. But these are what we're going to grade against. Right. What we're going to go up against, and then we're going to try it a different way. If it doesn't work, or hey, you just found something that works. Yeah. It's great. Yeah. I get comments from my friends all the time because I'll share it to my Instagram page. And Gavin's like, whenever Danny shares it, like the stuff goes way up on the reels. And I don't share a lot of stuff. And so he'd put it out there, and then I start getting people just DMing me, sending me text messages about it. And I was like, this is awesome. It's working. It's exactly what he wanted. It's a fun way to show our culture and everything, because like at 3:30, 4 o'clock on Fridays, we'll stop working on most Fridays and play a cornhole tournament. And we have a cornhole trophy. Then we play cornhole in the office. And so it's just like having fun things like that. This Friday, we're taking the whole team out to go out. We're going to my old business, to DFW Surf. Oh, wow. We're going to go paddleboarding, kayaking, bringing the boat over to go wake surfing. And then I have a buddy that works for Sea-Doo. He's letting us use a Sea-Doo. We're capturing some content for Sea-Doo. That's awesome. And so getting them some content, they're letting us use a Sea-Doo to run around on. And so some people probably never ridden Sea-Doos before, so they get to go do something like that. Right. That's another great way to sell stuff to people and build to build a relationship with people, is go do something out of the ordinary. Everybody wants to go get coffee. Hey, you want to go paddleboarding? I've never been paddleboarding before. Yeah. It'll be fun. They're never going to forget that experience. Right. If you can give them a good experience and have a meeting where it's more of an experience and a meeting, they're never going to forget it, and they're going to want to work with you, because people work with people who they like, know, and trust. Yeah. So if you're constantly doing those sort of things, you're going to build these relationships with people that are a lot deeper than a transaction. Right. Because a lot of people look at a sale as a transaction. You got a transaction for it. Well, if you can just go past the transaction and you can create a relationship, that's going to last way longer. You're going to get a ton more business out of it, and a good friend. Yeah. So
that's amazing. That's crazy. I think that's, first of all, I'm super convicted. I'm a coffee guy. So that's like my go-to. But I love that you said that. I'm going to put that into practice ASAP, because that's so true. I mean, even like me, I mean, I have a friend of mine who's we're drinking wine and just hanging out one night. It's like my first meeting that isn't like coffee in the morning in a work day where you're taking another person's time that they could be working or something like that. And even that gave me that realization, like, oh wow, I'm gonna go like hang out with this guy, we're gonna have a good night, and we're probably like the way, because he presented me with the idea of going out and like hanging out, and he said, and we'll talk about this, and like I learned from that, right? Because most of my interactions where I am invited or something, I try to like see what they're doing right that like I like about it. And it was like, man, this guy really just invited me to go drink and like have a good time, and we're gonna talk about this thing while drinking and having a good time. But that's a great tip. And for anybody listening to this like trying to build relationships, because that's probably one of the biggest things that I want to build with hustle culture, is like a community of people, like where people can connect and stuff. I encourage so many people to always like comment and stuff, not just to comment, but like to actually interact with people. I remember in college, one of the things I hated doing, but it worked. I made so many friends doing it. Was they have this community online like panel, I guess, called Blackboard, and anybody who's been to like TCC or any of those community colleges knows about it. But it's like there was like always, oh no, they called it a discussion board. So it would be a topic, and this was like one of the like lower grades that you had to do, and you had to talk about a topic and then comment on 3 other people's discussion topics, and you had to go and like do all that. And it was mad annoying, and anybody who did it never actually like cared to comment like something about, I don't know, whatever the thing was. But I learned from that. I'm like, you know, what are some ways that we can, as I'm building this like podcast / community, like get people to engage. And one of the things that I wanted to start doing is like events and stuff, so I can actually be where people can come. But that all leads me to this, man. I wanted to know from you, from a salesman, from a, you know, that's your tried and trade. Looking at my podcast, okay. I wanted to ask you this because Gavin tells me you're a whiz with all this stuff. I want to scale this thing, okay, and I want to, you know, bring in like if you look at like the how do podcasts make money, there's really like 3 ways, which is like crowdfunding through Patreon or even like any of those things. Second is OnlyFans. Second is what's it called? Just advertisers. Exactly, bringing advertisers on. And those are like the 2 like key ways of doing that.
The other way is just making money off of YouTube revenue.
Right, exactly.
If you're putting everything on YouTube and you're starting to get it, you can make good money on YouTube as well. Right.
You looking at the podcast, because you wanted to come on, I assume you listen to other ones, right? Other podcasts in the space. So for you, what would be like the trick, or like what do you see in the podcast industry where people could probably make some money that isn't like normal yet? Have you even thought about that before? Because like,
no, I've been asked to start a podcast for like the past 2 or 3 years.
You should. You have a crazy story.
So you should start a podcast and you should do this. And then like I started and put a whole treatment together to start a TV show called Dallas Now.
Wow.
That was about what Dallas is like now compared to what people think it is. Because I moved here and everybody's like, oh, it's just going to be steers and queers.
Nope.
And I was like, you have no clue. You've never been to Dallas.
Yeah.
And I was like, there's definitely the prettiest women in the nation. I've traveled to every single state except for 2 of them, and they're flyover states anyways.
Right.
And it's like, you have the prettiest women in Dallas. There's so many things to do. People are like, oh, you can't go outside. You can't do anything. I started a paddleboard shop.
No.
I started a surf shop in the middle of Dallas, Texas, and it's successful.
Wow.
Still running. There's 3 locations. And it's like, you can go do anything. So the big thing that it comes down to with podcasts is it really comes down to niching down a lot of times. People don't want to niche down. It's something that's even been hard. Like I said, we just recently niched down in my business.
Right.
Because you're going to get a niche following of people that are they're expecting a certain kind of content. Another podcast that I listen to a lot that's all over the place would be Ed Milet. Ed Milet, but he's always, his one key thing is it's all about people that are maxing out and that are living at that like peak potential.
Right.
And so that's his main thing. So having a mission behind it and then just following that mission, making sure that each guest that you bring on follows that same mission and has that idea in mind, I think is one of the most important things. Another area to make, it's like, people talk about, especially with the video side of podcasts, they talk about their sponsors and that they have sponsors of the show, all of that sort of stuff. Not many people talk about product placement and just doing a product placement, but you're not actually advertising them.
Right.
That's another way to do it. If a lot of people, if you notice it, all right, I don't get as many listens on Spotify, or I don't get as many listens on this. It's more of a video podcast.
Yeah.
You can use product placement as another thing that you can do. What's funny is like when I was 17, 18, I wanted to be I've always enjoyed advertising and sales and marketing. I wanted to create billboards that were on the backside of chairlifts. So the people that are going up and they're going skiing, because I was a snowboard bum.
Oh, that's genius.
I wanted to put billboards on the back of them. They now have it on the railing, and when that you pull over top of you, a lot of times they'll have a map of the mountain and maybe one or two small ads. I wanted to put a billboard on the back of there. People think that advertising is annoying and that it ruins everything. Just when you can't skip it, yes. But
right.
But I really enjoy like different styles of marketing and advertising. So that's one way is product placement that I could see that you could make money from. Another one is producing other people's podcasts, because that's more of the production. That's going back onto the production behind the camera and everything.
Yeah.
But
yeah,
I haven't really thought too much about it, but I'm sure that there's other ways that you can make money, because you can have advertisers, but you can also sell stuff.
Right.
So there's affiliate marketing,
right,
that you could bring into it, where they're not actually paying for the show, but you're promoting something in your show links and everything.
Yep.
That people can purchase. Well, you're just talking about it. They're not a sponsor.
Yeah.
But you are getting paid.
Right.
When they go to purchase it out of the links. So that's one thing. Also, a podcast that I started listening to that was for agencies. I joined a mastermind. Outside of it, you were talking about building a culture.
Yeah.
I listened to this podcast, and then now our agency pays a couple $1,000s a month to be a part of a mastermind of people that all own agencies.
Wow.
So that's another way to make money out of a podcast, is you were talking about building a culture and a community.
Yeah.
Well, if it's a closed off community of people that are serious about doing something like that, you can do something like that, where it's like you have a mastermind and you're a master of something, and you can help them, or you bring in other people that talk, and then people have to be a part of this group.
Yeah, and that's very podcast oriented, because it's just people talking. Yeah.
Well, and it's you'll bring the people on your show. They'll talk a little bit about it, and they'll be like, "Well, but I'll be at the mastermind on Thursday. If you want to come, make sure to sign up. It's $25. It's $100, whatever it may be."
That's smart.
And then they come in and they get to talk about that specific industry.
Wow.
So if you have people that are on there, and then you have them come in, they can sit down, do some sort of workshop, something like that. That's another way that I could think of that you could make money off of a podcast. Also, if you're just driving a lot of traffic to a website and you're able to sell, you're able to use like Google AdWords and get all of that onto your website.
Oh, right. Yeah.
To sell ads for a website of where you're driving traffic to. Like the radio shows will do. The radio shows will make you go to their website. Well, their website's also filled with advertisers, and so they're getting impressions on all of those ads.
That's smart, because I use a website as my primary. Yeah. You've helped me a lot here today. You've taught me a lot. You've given me some tips even for the podcast. One of the key questions I had for you, and we're about an hour and a half in, so we'll make this the last key thing.
I'll talk for 3 hours. I don't.
Oh, okay, good. In that case,
What's funny is I never thought that I'd listen to a 3-hour podcast, and then I listened to a full Joe Rogan one, and then like there's another one called Gypsy Tales. I really like dirt bikes. And I recently got into dirt bikes when I was 31. I did my first dirt bike race at 34. So if you think that you're too old to do something, go try it out. I've got buddies who are 65. They go harder than I do at sports, and they're 65 years old. Yeah, they might break themselves every other year.
Right.
But they get back up and they do it again. And I'm like, dude, this guy's 66 years old and shredding harder than I am right now. Or riding his mountain bike harder than me. And I'm like, man, he's been like, that's a guy that's been also like a father figure to me as well here in Texas. And he's like, dude, just keep going.
Right.
Yeah, it might hurt. That's fine. And it's
good.
like, I was like, you sound like, what's his name? Why am I going blank? He has the book, You Can't Hurt Me. They make all the David Goggins.
Okay, there it is. Yeah,
Goggins.
Yeah.
He's
Bro,
like, no,
he is killing TikTok right now.
Yeah.
Dude, I'm scrolling through TikTok and I get a David Goggins clip every like 7 scrolls.
I love the ones that he reposts of people making fun of him, and he goes, yeah, I really am weird. That's all he says.
Bro, that's been the funniest thing, seeing like in content creation, like TikTok, even like I know Reddit's been blowing up recently, but like meme culture around these like prominent like, you know, hustle or just, what's it called? Motivational speaking. Like there was this one guy who did every skit YouTuber has done like a Gary Vee impression or whatever. But yeah, seeing that and seeing how people react is hilarious.
I hated Gary Vee at first. I absolutely couldn't stand him. And now I'm like, all right, I like some of the stuff he says. Like, I like what he's doing. I like what he's done with VaynerMedia.
Yeah.
He's crushed it. Like, he's really smart, and he was just very consistent, super consistent, putting out content over and over again. And like he says, it's gone. Like,
Yeah.
boom, there's something new in your feed. His team puts out so much content. It is insane.
That was the thing that made me gravitate towards him. Cause like, I wasn't like, I'm a die-hard Gary Vee fan in the sense like I've been watching him since like the first Daily V vlog thing he did. And it's not because I'm like, you know, I'm not going to get a Gary Vee tattoo on me or nothing. But it's like I just followed him for so long that it's like embedded in my brain. Gavin hates Gary Vee, right? Or has hated. It's like, it was a funny thing. We would always talk about it in the office when we used to work at the church before. And because it was like me and this other guy liked Gary Vee, and then him and this other guy hated him, and we would discuss why and all that stuff. But yeah, even him, like recently, he's been like, you just can't deny the 70 freaking pieces of content he puts out every day, and just the wherewithal from whenever he started, 2009 or whatever, to go to the internet when nobody else was, and you know, build a team around that. Like you said, like, for example, your business, you're just starting to really do content around your business, right? Like the house party stuff and all that other stuff. Like, he's been doing that since day one. And that's the thing I admire about him is like, talk about risk, like literally going a direction that everyone was shunning. The internet's a fad, all this other stuff. And it's like, nah, but he did it. And I think that's just cool.
Yeah, like what he did with Wine Library on YouTube. Like, most people don't know this. YouTube was actually a dating app when it first started.
What?
Like, if
Really?
you go to look up like YouTube and what it looked like at the very beginning, it was a dating app.
That's crazy.
It was a video dating app.
Oh my god.
Is how YouTube was started. So like, he went hardcore on that, and like, it's just that people being consistent and continuing to put out content over and over again. I used to be really consistent on Instagram, and I was putting out stuff all the time, especially when I was doing the magazine. And like, my girlfriend would get pissed at me. She's like, what are you doing? I'm like, I'm working. She's like, you're on Instagram. Well,
oh my god.
I gained a big following for the magazine off Instagram. Like, that's how I reached out to a lot of people.
Right.
Before DMs were around and you could only comment on stuff.
Yeah.
And I'm commenting and I'm having conversations with people. I've been meeting people off of the internet since MySpace.
Jeez.
And I still will continue to meet anybody that I talk to. I don't care if you're off the internet. Everybody's like, well, what if it's like blah, blah, blah. I'm like, how about you quit putting that crap into your mind and stop watching all these murder mystery shows?
Dude,
like,
for real.
I can't stand it. I'm like, that's one thing that comes from the church and comes from like my background of growing up that I didn't realize was that important. My parents would always tell me, watch what you put into your mind. Like, watch what you read, watch what you watch. I'm like, yeah, I'm listening to Eminem, Mom. Like, it's good.
Yeah.
So, and like, I asked my mom who Bob Dylan was, and she didn't know who Bob Dylan was. And I was like, what do you mean? You were born in the 60s. Like, you were born like in 61. How do you not know who Bob Dylan is? Well, she only listens to Christian music. I was like, well, you're missing a little bit of perspective on life.
Yeah.
I love you, Mom. But having that broader perspective and experiencing all sorts of things, like just having experiences, what it does is it takes away a lot of fear. If you go through and you experience something, you're not afraid of it anymore most of the time.
Yeah.
Once you come out on the other side, like, you're like, all right, this is really scary to me. I'm not sure that I can do this. Do it.
Yeah.
Just do it. Because you're going to come out on the other side and you're going to be like, well, that really wasn't that scary. Yeah. All right, I lost a little bit of money. Oh, my back hurt because I belly flopped when I jumped off of that roof into the pool.
Right.
Yeah. Oh, I got hurt a little bit. Guess what? Now you got a great story.
Right, exactly.
You got a great story to tell.
That's crazy. It's funny you say that because, you know, I come from a religious background as well, from church. And we went to North Carolina, my wife and I, that's where my parents live now.
Okay.
They live over there, and they're raising my little brother, Diego. And the thing is, me and my sister are only 6 years apart, which seems like a lot, but me and my brother are 10 years apart. So it's really not that bad. So my mom, we went and got coffee, and she was asking me, she was like, you know, you turned out to be a good kid. She was like, tell me what I did right and what I did wrong. Cause like, the thing is, I was raised with my sister, my parents, cousins, like so much tribe, and my brother isn't. Like, he's in another state. Like, we're all over here still. So she was like, just in her head about that stuff. And she asked me, like, what did we do right? What did we do wrong? And I was like, I mean, obviously you did a lot right, because look at me. But I was like, dude, like, I think the only thing that I would say is that religious, like, guilt thing, like that constant, like, be careful, or don't take this risk, or be safe, or do this. There were so many aspects of my life that I just didn't even go down the road of. I just didn't even think of experiencing, just because it was you're just told not to do it. And I was like, after trying it, like, one of the biggest things, like, was drinking. It's like alcohol is just really bad. Like, and, being 21, or I went to Spain when I was 18, and I was out there for a month. And obviously I was like, I'm drinking. I was with my aunt, and she didn't care. So I was like, cool. I got that experience, but I had a lot of friends who binge drink. Like, I'm not condoning this, but in high school, like high school parties and stuff like that, they were drinking and stuff, and they're fine. And like, there was this mentality of like, if you expose your kid, or if you expose yourself to these things, you're going to turn into the worst possible outcome of doing those things. And I'm like, or maybe, like, and again, I don't know your story.
That's like the same thing of growing to youth group and everything like that. And then I would go do things, and I was looked at as a bad kid and told what I was doing was bad and that I was going to go to hell for it. And I'm like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
Like, go live your life. Like, quit worrying about mine.
Exactly.
And it's just that culture, it honestly pushed me away from the church. I don't want to say I don't like the church, but I don't like a lot of the culture that comes around that, and that they're trying to be so perfect. And then, like, from the church that I grew up in, finding out later on, one of the pastors had a kid in college that nobody even knows about. Yeah, because he's putting on this perfect life. And this one, his kids are this way. And it's like, everybody was trying to put off this perfect persona. And it's like, none of us are perfect. Quit trying to push people to be perfect.
Yeah.
And just love them for who they are and what they're doing. And try and push them, or try and like guide them on the right path. But don't like be like, you're a bad person.
Right.
You need to stop this. What you really need to find is, you need to find out what motivates that person. You need to find out what they actually like to do, and focus on that, and get them focused on their passion.
Yeah.
Because I was kicked out of everything, I was kicked off that basketball team with like 3 days left in the trip. I was in Berlin, Germany, and I got kicked off for drinking and girls, which my mom told me that when they recruited me to play on the team, she's like, don't take him. It's not going to be good.
Wow.
He's not in a good area right now, like, of his life, and he's going to get in trouble. And yeah, I got in trouble.
But it wasn't the end of the world.
It wasn't the end of the world. I was like, I had a drink, and she was 18 too.
Right.
Like,
yeah. No, it's ridiculous. I think that's one of the big things, and even the culture and like society is, learning about the church as a whole. Because again, I'm a believer. I'm still Christian.
Yeah.
Exactly. It was like, I saw this clip from this church, and the pastor was saying, he was like, a lot of people are losing their faith, and like they'll get hurt by the church, and then they'll lose their faith, and they'll never come to church again. And it was like, again, I didn't say it correctly, but he said it in a way that was saying that like your faith is tied to going to church. And I was like, no. And you're going to see a lot of people who are believers who don't go to church. And the reason for that is because what you're saying, the culture around church, like as the community, isn't
we're the good
great.
people. You're bad.
It's
like,
bad.
Get out of here. They're
And
not bad people. They just don't understand. And like I was listening to a Joe Rogan podcast this week with the chick from North Korea.
Oh my God. I was going to bring that up.
Oh man. Like that was very eye-opening. And the way that she talks about this, she just hasn't heard of any of these things. It's never been brought up to her. And that was something that I remember like growing up. And I'm thankful that my parents were like, they've always been just accept everybody for where they are, who they are, and help them down the right path. But it was never like, you're a bad person.
Right.
It's never condoning the person. It's condoning the activity.
Yeah.
There's a difference between condoning an activity and condoning a person. When you make it personal, it takes it to a whole nother level. When you're condoning an activity that somebody's doing, that's different. And so it's about making sure that you communicate that properly. This activity is not good and it's not healthy for you. You're not a bad person.
Right.
But this activity is not good for you, and it can lead to this.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I mean, there's a lot of things that I've done that, oh yeah, it was bad for me. And I mean, but I lived my life. Like, at the end of the day, it's about getting out there and living and trying everything. Because I was told same thing. I was told not to do all of this stuff. And like, I just wanted to try things. And like, my mom's like, you would have been a lot farther along if you would just listen and learn from other people's mistakes. I was like, yeah, but I can't share a story that's of somebody else.
Right.
Nobody's going to believe me if I'm like, oh yeah, so this one time my buddy was drinking and he fell down the stairs and that's why he has a scar on his forehead right here. No, that's me. I did that.
Yeah.
I was the one who actually had that happen to me when I was 21 because I went out and got drunk and then I came home and fell down my stairs right onto my face.
Bro.
I have that story and I can tell you that you probably should make sure that you're watching how many drinks that you have because of these experiences. And I've always been that person that I like to share from experience and not from stories. But stories are also the biggest teacher. Like, I did this training with this guy that's was a Green Beret and went on 17 tours in his 19 years of service. And he would talk about where they went into these tribes in Afghanistan or these villages, and they would get them to fight against the insurgents. And they would come in and they would meet with the elders, and they told them that, hey, we're here. Here's what we're going to be doing. They're going to come for us.
Wow.
If you guys want to, you can come up to the rooftops and fight the insurgents with us, or you cannot. But we're going to be up there every single night protecting you guys.
Wow.
And then they went up there every single night over and over again. And then they're out there and they're shooting, and then they see a fire come from another rooftop. All right, one farmer's up there now.
Wow.
And then more came. And then now they're able to fight off the Taliban that's coming into that place. Jeez. And they did it all through stories.
Wow.
And so I went to this story workshop where we went and learned how to tell our stories, and learned how to share from us about telling stories to people, because stories move people. That's why we watch movies. That's why the movie industry is so big, is because people relate and learn from stories. I'm the type of person that when I'm watching a show, I don't like people to like bug me. I'm watching that show during that time, but I also relate myself a lot to the characters of different parts of where I'm at in my life. And I'm like, I learned something from that movie. I learned something from that movie. That movie was trash. I'm not going to watch that one again.
Dude, that's so huge though. Cause like I was thinking about it the other day, cause I really I've always loved writing. Like I was in college I was in it for a year, but realistically I was only really trying for one semester. The second semester I didn't go to any classes. So but yeah, so my thing was English class. I loved it. I went through this whole phase of like wanting to be like a poet. That's like my thing. And recently I've been thinking about like writing a book and all that. And I just started looking at other books and like, what is it looking nowadays? And I've seen a lot of, I really like the idea of like, hustling and like growing and mindset and stuff. Like that's the things I like. So when you Google that, you see like all of these like self-help books that are like very literal and very like step-by-step-y. And I was like, man, I remember growing up and reading books that were like stories. Like when you think of Shakespeare, he didn't write a memoir of how to live. He wrote stories that told you how to live through the story. And I think that a lot of people who are getting in that industry, not really. That's why I encourage people to read too, because I've been reading this book called Gentleman in Moscow. I don't know if you've seen it, but I literally there's like an Amazon store.
I hate reading, but I do it.
I know.
5-10 pages a day. I have book clubs, and I was told that some of our employees didn't like that we have book clubs on Wednesdays, and we'll go through a book, and then we'll take a few weeks off. We'll go through another book. And you're so into self-help books, and I'm like, well, they help. Trust me.
Right.
We're in different positions. They help and they work, and a lot of people gain a lot of value from them. Yeah. But it's important to read. I'll read 5-10 pages a day just to get it done. Right. I did 75 Hard from Andy Frisella, if you've heard of that. I did 75 Hard, and you read 10 pages a day. And so just staying consistent with that. And also one that I was going to tell you that like going from the story perspective is Green Lights by Matthew McConaughey.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Highly recommend listening to it on Audible, because reading it would be cool, but when he's
got that voice.
His voice and the way that he animates everything in the stories. The green lights that he talks about is he has prescriptions, he has green lights, and he has bumper stickers. His bumper stickers are short little quotes. Essentially his prescriptions are like, here's a prescription of how to do this, and then like green lights are, all right, you got through this, there's a green light, we figured it out. Highly recommend it. It's 8 hours. I listened to it on a drive down to Houston and back.
Yeah.
I listened to it on another drive. I can't remember where I was going. And then like, it is such a good book with so many good lessons in it about life. And you learn so much about Matthew McConaughey, and he's such an interesting character.
Right.
It made me want to start journaling again more.
Wow. Yeah, no, that's amazing. But I was saying, like, that's where the storytelling comes in, because, you know, I also have, you know, Malcolm Gladwell. Like, I'm reading Outliers right now.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, that's a great book.
It's a great book.
And again, the thing about me reading is, like, I'll get in these little stingens where, like, I'll read like 40, 50 pages and in a sitting, but then I won't read anything for like 2 weeks. So I'm still in like chapter 3. That's me. But
and that's why I was talking about that consistency. It's
right.
like that consistent little things. And so just, all right, I got to read 5 pages. I read this other book that I really liked called The Miracle Morning. And it has this thing called Savers, and it's silence, which is meditation, affirmations, visualization, exercise, reading, and scribing. Scribing's journaling.
Wow.
And like, those are things that you should do in the morning. And having a good morning routine, I can't tell you how much of a difference it makes in my life when I actually follow my morning routine versus when I don't. Because I'm just so clear going into the day, and I have everything laid out on exactly what I want. But it's just having the discipline to get up and telling that thought in your head that's like, oh man, I'm really comfortable. So comfortable right here. I don't want to get up.
Yeah.
Just get up, get out of bed, go do it. It sucks. It's going to suck, but it's all right. It's going to be a good suck, because you're going to look back at it later and you're going to be happy about it.
Talk about that a little bit, because I think, like, in this vein of, like, you know, culture grind, like content that's being made, the morning routine is like a meme nowadays. Like, people like Cody Ko, I don't know if you follow him. He's like a really funny commentary guy. Other people who are, I love watching and listening to, like, comedians and stuff. That's like a thing they make fun of, because like some guys just be making it so cringy. It's like, but morning routines are so effective. Like, I've gone through seasons where, like, I'll tell myself I got to get up at this time. I got to do these 3 things. And when I do them, the rest of my day is amazing. And I'll go through seasons where, like, I don't do it, and I noticed the production level not being high. For you, talk about a little bit about your morning routine, and then, like, how that really does help you.
So getting up and following what with the Miracle Morning, it makes such a difference with the rest of my day, and just having that scheduled time and the quiet time. So what it really talks about, and like what's been really good for me, is taking time for myself, because I'm constantly surrounded by other people. And constantly my phone is going off all day long.
Right.
And so you don't have any distractions because people aren't up. That's also why sometimes I like to work late at night, is because there's no distractions.
Right.
And there's nobody, I can't reach out to somebody. I can't talk to them. It's 5:30 in the morning. Most people aren't up wanting to text, other than my other friends that have a morning routine.
Right.
Like, those are the only people, and they're also very highly productive people. But getting up, I like to get up and go exercise first. Because it gets the blood flowing.
Up, yeah.
And then making sure that I'm taking time to actually just sit there 5 minutes, just meditate for 5 minutes. I use Headspace, is the app that I use with meditation. And then sometimes I'll just do it sitting there. But another thing that most people don't think about is visualization. So I try to visualize what my whole day is going to look like. All right, I'm going to go do this. This is how the outcome's going to be. I'm going to go do this. Well, if you talk to a lot of the top sports athletes, or a lot of the top performers in general, this, I've heard it on Ed Milet's podcast over and over again, from Shaun White to the Iron Cowboy to business guys that are talking about how they visualized everything. And Shaun White talks about it, and he's like, when I'm at the top, you'll see him on camera. He's like looking like this and like that. He's going through his whole run before he does it. He visualized landing every single trick, exactly what it was going to look like, what he was going to do.
Wow.
And it makes you so much more successful. And so I started even taking that into mind when I was doing board sports. And I'm like, all right, so I want it to look like this, and then I'm going to land, and I'm going to be back on it, or on dirt bikes, because dirt bikes are really dangerous. And I just got into it in my 30s. And so I'm like, all right, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to come off of this, and then I'm going to land right here. And it makes a difference when you think through things and you mentally put yourself through it. You're able to go do it a lot easier.
Yeah.
So that was I remember, and people are like, well, I'm not a morning person. Well, you could talk to one of my best friends who's a personal trainer here downtown. And he lived with me a couple of years ago when I first read that book. And he goes, remember when you told me that your body just 7:30 was the time that you like to get up? Like 7:30 was it. He goes, look at you now. You're up at 5:30 in the morning. I get up at 6 right now. That's like my alarm set at 6 every single morning.
Yeah.
I get up. It makes it harder when you have a wife or a girlfriend or anything like that in bed. You just got to get up and disappear.
Right.
Like, you got to get up and go do your thing.
Yep.
Like,
I've tried it.
I've tried cuddle with me. And I'm like, I got to go. Like, I need to go do this for me. And trust me, it'll make it so you stay around a lot longer.
Right.
Because I need my me time.
Yeah.
To be able to focus. And so I never realized it. What's funny is, like, going back to my father, my dad was a teacher, but he got up at 4:30 in the morning. I'm like, you don't have to be to school till 8. He's like, but I get more done between 6 a.m. and 8 a.m. than I do the rest of the day.
Wow.
Because I have no distractions. Nobody's coming in the office. No kids, no teachers. Nobody's coming in to ask me questions. So he would get up, go to the gym, cook breakfast, read, and then he would go to work from there. But it was before I got up. He had already done all of that. Then he gets to the office and gets all of his work done. Well, then he's home after work and he doesn't have to worry about anything else because he got so much done in the morning.
Right, exactly.
And the way that, like, Ed Milet talks about it is he talks about it that you have 4 6-hour days. So you've got 6 hours in the morning to get something done. If you schedule it like a day and you give yourself 6 hours, you're going to get your stuff done in 6 hours. All right, now you got your second 6 hours. And then you got that third 6 hours. And Gary Vee talks about it a lot as well. But in the evening, you have another 6 hours.
Right.
Most people stay up till midnight. You can either choose to go be comfortable and go do whatever you want, or you can go after whatever it is that you want. And then you got your 6 hours to sleep. I sleep about 6 hours. I normally go to bed around 11, midnight, somewhere right in that range. And I get up at 6. And I've realized that works for me. Sometimes I get tired and I'll just sleep for an entire Sunday.
Right.
Because I'm like, all right, it's time to recharge.
Yeah.
And I got to recharge. But it's very important to have that morning routine. And people are like, well, I'm just not a morning person. Try it for a week minimum. You've got to continue to get yourself up. It sucks every single day getting up in the morning. Like, it's not something I enjoy to this day. But it makes my day so much better.
Yeah, and even like it's unenjoyable until you're done with your morning run or something. And then you're like, oh, wow, I'm so glad I woke up. Because right now I'm in a stinger where like I'm not waking up. I'm waking up probably around 7:30. And like waking up is like rolling around until 7:45, maybe getting up at 8. That's like my time. And it's like.
And then you're in a rush to do everything else in the morning. And then the rest of your day is rushed. So if you're able to start out your day more of having it so that you have that calmness and you take that time for yourself, it makes such a difference throughout your day because then things are coming at you. And the way that, I don't remember what book or podcast I was listening to, but they talk about it, that your morning routine is like putting on your armor in the morning. You're taking that time for yourself and you're putting on the armor. You've already taken time for you.
Right.
Now you can go give. But if you don't take time for yourself, you can't give to anybody else because you're just going to continue to empty out your cup, but you never filled it.
Right.
And so if you fill your cup in the morning, you're able to then pour it out over the day because you're going to fill it up again in the morning.
Dang. That's a really great analogy. That's awesome. Yeah. And one of the things with that too, doing stuff in the morning for anybody who's married or has a family, I don't have any kids. I'm just married. But one of the things that like is super important to me is like being able to, like when my wife gets home, being able to be with my wife. And the days that I can't, that I got to be like, I got to edit this or I got to work this. It's like, it's so much emotional and physical distress. First of all, not just on your marriage, but on yourself. Like, because you're worried about, I'm letting her down or I'm doing this. And it's like, that's where like that morning thing would matter. You know, usually just knowing how to do things and having a hard stop to where, okay, I'm not going to work here. Like at 5:30 or at 6, I'm not going to do any more work, maybe until 11 when she goes to sleep or something like that. It's like, that's something super healthy and it's going to end up working out for you because you're not going to have to worry about it. But for
Another big thing is time blocking.
Yeah. Okay. Talk about that.
Like if you're going to finish most of your projects or whatever you need to in the allotted amount of time that you give yourself to do it. So if you time block your time out throughout the day and you're like, all right, I've got 1 hour to finish this project. You're going to finish the project normally in 1 hour.
Yeah.
It's not always going to be the best quality because you didn't take the time. But if you did that 1 hour and you got 90% of the way through it, now you take another hour later and you probably would have spent 3 hours on the project. Take another hour later and you're able to just go through with a fine-tooth comb of everything that you've already done. Well, now you took 2 hours instead of 3. So looking at it that way and giving yourself a finite set of time, I work best on a deadline. Give me a deadline, put me up against a wall, give me pressure. I'm going to get it done.
Yeah.
But it's about setting that mental timeline, even though you know you don't have to get it done until Thursday, but you tell yourself Tuesday.
Right.
I'll even tell people that a lot of times. I'll be like, oh yeah, you need to be here at 5. I really needed you here at 6. But I wanted to make sure that we're set up. Everything's there. I always try and show up to things early.
Right.
I hate being late. And I still run late sometimes, just like anybody else.
Right.
But at the same time, I'm constantly, you'll notice people as well. People that have a good concept of time, they're normally successful people. People that don't have a concept of time, they're normally not very successful people.
Yeah.
Because if you're trying to get a lot of things done, you have to know exactly what's going on and what's coming next.
Right.
In your day. So that way you can get each thing done. So by time blocking and knowing exactly what's going on and how much time you have allotted to do something. Like for this tonight, I was like, all right, I don't have anything left. I was talking to my girlfriend on my way down here. I was like, I don't know what time I'm going to get done. I was like, it just depends on how good a questions he asks. I was like, it could be 10 p.m.
Right.
I don't know.
Yeah.
So
that's wild. Am I doing okay?
Yeah, you're doing great.
Awesome. That's great. No, for time blocking, I think that's super key. I downloaded an app the other day and it literally does that for you. You kind of set up a whole list and it'll help you allot it on a schedule of like per hour. Do you usually time block hourly or do you do like you set different hours for different things?
I'll set different hours for different things. Sometimes I'll do it for an hour. I found that a lot of times, like, I'll underestimate how long it'll take me to get something done. I also but a lot of times, if I underestimate how long it's going to get me to take for me to get something done, it's normally because I'm not prepared to do that thing. If I'm prepared to do it, I'm normally going to get it done in the allotted time. Yeah. But preparation is key. And so making sure that you're prepared for what you're about to go do and that you have the things that you need, whether it's tools for a project or whether it is information that you're going to need. If you know the things up front that you're going to need, you can get stuff done a lot faster. But if you're building something, for instance, I built a chicken coop this weekend. Oh, nice. And it's like, oh, I don't have any staples to staple the wire in on the bottom. Well, now I got to run to the store and get staples. I was just at the store when I bought the wood. Right. If I would have just checked to make sure I had all the things, it would have taken 30 minutes out of the time to build that same thing. So just making sure that you're prepared. And we're actually reading a book right now. It's a company called The Checklist Manifesto, which is a really good book about how important it is to have checklists so that little errors don't happen. Right. I highly recommend that book as well. And it talks a lot about the medical industry and about airline pilots because something goes wrong there. It's somebody's life. Yeah. It's done. Right. Done. And they were able to take down by having a checklist the amount of, if you know what a central line is, it goes in through your arteries and everything. And with the central line, they were having this huge infection rate of people getting infected. They put a checklist in place and it dropped by 50%. That's wild. And like all these different stories that they tell about how airline pilots, they go through, they do the same thing every single day. And it's hard, it gets monotonous to look at a checklist and make sure that you're checking off every single thing, especially when you're doing the same list over and over again. But it's those times when you don't, that something slips up and something goes through the cracks. Yeah. And so just making sure that each thing is done. Did you do that? Did you get each piece done? Did I, in this creative brief, did I make sure to ask these questions that I needed to ask? And did I think about all the different outcomes first before moving into doing the project? Or I'm working on a design for something. And something I've been talking about with our designer. One of them was, I was like, hey, making sure that you're really thinking through what you're designing first, because you're going to save yourself a lot of time. If you don't have all the pieces that you need to design, you shouldn't even start the design yet, because you need to make sure that you know, well, what all is going to go on this design. Right. Did you make sure that you know that like a lanyard for a company's event, one company that has a summer retainer, and I was like, well, what about their name? Where's that going to go on this design? Yeah. It's a lanyard so people know who you are. He's like, oh, it's a good point. And I was like, yeah, like you need to make sure that you think through all the different things. What does it look like? I'll go look at all sorts of other stuff and get inspiration. If you think you're original nowadays, you're probably not. You got your information from somewhere else because it's coming into your head and then you're processing it, and you subconsciously don't even know that you saw that somewhere else.
Right.
And that's like when you go to like your reticular activating system, when you go to, you want to buy a new car. And you're like, man, I really want a Toyota 4Runner. And then you start seeing Toyota 4Runners everywhere.
Yeah.
And it's like, you're looking, and now it's like, well, I see this everywhere.
Yeah.
Whenever you go to want something, you start to recognize it a lot more over and over again. You see it in places. And so it's very important just to make sure that you're making sure what's coming in is going out.
Yeah. I think that being prepared before you start whatever task you have is super important. I remember my mom, like I said, Venezuelan, so like grew up Spanish in the home. I would always, for fun, like we had like the dining table here, and then we had like the trash can like over here, and like when I'm done eating, right, like, you know, wipe my face, and then I crumple it up and I shoot it. That was like my thing, you know what I mean? Sports guy growing up. And every time I probably made it like 4 out of 10 times, and she was always, every time she would say this, I know you got to be in Spanish, but I got to say it in Spanish, and then I'll say it again. She said, el flojo trabaja doble. And it was the lazy person who like tosses it instead of getting up to go put it down works double, because now you tossed it, you missed, now you got to go pick it up and put it back in again. And it's like, you could have just done that in the first place. And that's how I look at everything. And for me, I'm primarily a videographer, so it's like, you know, a lot of, you know, production, but most of my time is spent on my computer sitting down editing. And growing, like, as I've been developing myself in like editing, the biggest thing has been, let me make sure I have every asset I need in my project bin before I even start cutting it up. Because the worst part when you're editing, like, is when you're editing and then like, oh man, this thing would be perfect here, and then you got to go to Google, and now you got to search it, and then you got to download the asset, and now you got to do it. Or even worse, when you're talking to a client. And so one of the things I learned pandemic year, right, was the discovery meeting, having like a allotted 1 to 3 hours to literally just ask a bajillion questions, so you never have to bug the client again. You know the answer to everything. And dude, I mean, I can't even imagine how many times before that I would like hit up like, oh, hey, I need your logo for the video. Yeah. You just forget. But if you have, again, and I think that's where it all culminates. And I think it's cool you brought it up, having that checklist of things that you just do or you ask beforehand. But ultimately, it's just having systems in place. It's like,
that's like the biggest thing. If I could give any advice for building a business, like if you want to build something and you want it to be larger than yourself, you absolutely have to have processes and systems in place, because otherwise people aren't going to know what they need to do. And people are just not going to do anything if they don't know what they need to do. They're not you. They're not going to automatically instinctively think about doing the thing. You need to make sure that that you have a process in place and you have SOPs, which is standard operating procedures. You need to make sure that you have those in place. And all right, so what happens? An agreement comes in. First, go back. You can start all the way at the sales side. All right. So how does a lead come in? All right. From there, you nurture the lead to here. Then the lead becomes a client after they sign the agreement. Well, where does the agreement go? Where do you keep all of your agreements? All right. Then from there, what kind of onboarding process do you have?
Right.
You need to make sure that you have a list of everything. So that way it just becomes repeatable. Because if you can't give it to somebody else to do it, you're never going to be able to scale anything. And so many people just get in the hustle of doing the different things and then never think about all the steps that they're doing. If you can just write down all the different steps of what you're doing, it's a huge thing. And that's something I'm not the best at. Like I said, I'm somebody who's all over the place. I'm more the visionary.
Right.
But I found people who are really good at creating processes and procedures. I'm not the best at it, but I highly recommend it.
Yeah,
or find somebody that can do the things that you can't do. Like I wouldn't be in the same position if it wasn't for finding people that were great at doing other things. And those same people, if they hated sales, like Chris, my business partner, he's like, I hated sales.
Right.
I hate doing the back end stuff. He's like, perfect. I'll stay home. I'll do the back end stuff. You travel, you go get the clients, do all of that. And it's been a great business partnership for 8 years now in 2 different companies.
For the person who doesn't have that connection, or like who doesn't have a person that they can bring on, or even, I don't know, the finances to bring someone on, like to do it, like I think that's where the first part of thinking that you have to do everything yourself stems from. Like, I wish I had somebody who's good at sales, but I just don't, and I don't know how to get to them. Like, what would you say to them? Because a lot of people either say like, okay, well, you just grind it out at first, then you just got to learn everything, or you just got to like put yourself out there. And like, what do you think like in that position?
So in that position, I would say to go get out there. Like you need to go get out there and meet people. Because you're going to be able to find somebody who's passionate about the same thing as you. There's a lot of different stuff. Like, I think it just happened. There's Dallas Startup Week that just happened here in downtown. And Dallas Startup Week, I used to go to it. I haven't been in a couple of years. I guess it was COVID. And then this year I was just so busy I didn't have time to go do it.
Right.
But I met a lot of great people through there. And you'll go find somebody who's passionate about it. There's meetups online. Right. You want to go talk business? Go Facebook to meetup.com. There's groups for SEO. There's groups for everything.
Right.
Like I said, I've been meeting people off of online for as long as I can remember.
Yeah.
And so just be open to going and having conversations and being truthful and honest with people about where you are, what you want to do, what you're looking for. And guess what? If you start telling people naturally, we want to help other people. So if you tell people, hey, I'm looking for somebody that is good at doing this. I'm looking for somebody that's good at doing this. Well, what do you have? Well, I'm looking for a partner, actually. I want somebody who wants to go in on this and wants to work with me, because you know at that point in time, you can either, if you're not good at sales, for instance, you can go find somebody who's good at sales because you're going to need the sales to get the revenue to find somebody. If you're good at sales, what you can do is you can go solve a project and then you can try and backfill those positions.
Right.
And then you don't have to give any equity share away. But it comes down to thinking about a business partnership like marriage. All right, so you're going to go into a marriage with this person, with this, and the baby is your business. And so now you're going to fight. You're going to you're going to disagree on stuff. But at the end of the day, you're always going to come back to understanding that we're in this together and that you can have good conversations with the people. But just get out there. Right. Like, networking that's how I've built this whole business, and it's a $2 million business. Wow. Based off of networking and meeting people and telling people what I'm looking for. Yeah. I'm looking for this. Well, let me help you. I know somebody that might be able to help you with that. And then I told people, but also they would tell me what they're looking for, and I'm going to find it. I know these people through all these different things, and I also stay in touch with a lot of people. I make a conscious decision to reach out to people. Wow. To stay in touch with them, just have touch points. And I really just am curious about people. Right. And how they tick and every single thing. It's like, I want to, and I just want to see people succeed. Yeah. Everybody should be able to succeed. All you got to do is you got to put in the work. If you're not willing to put in the work, you're not going to succeed.
100%.
So it's take the time, put in the time, understand it takes time. It's another thing. People will grind for a year and, that was a hard racket. I tried it. Yeah. Like, I don't know if you've ever seen Glenn Ross. Big sales movie. Alec Baldwin has this speech in there. And it's pretty hardcore. It's like, I don't know if you've seen Boiler Room, any of those. These are like very salesy type movies where they're like hardcore in there. But he talks about this guy. It's like, oh yeah, I was a salesman once. It's a tough racket. And he's like, you know what it takes to sell real estate? It takes brass balls. And he pulls out this like thing out of his suitcase or his briefcase and shows it. And it's where Coffees for Closers comes from. Oh wow. If you've seen that anywhere, like Coffees for Closers, I actually have like a modern art piece in our office. This is Coffees for Closers. It means nothing else to anybody in our business because nobody else comes from the sales background that I come from. Yeah. But it was like hardcore. And if you like sports, sales is a great thing because you're playing against yourself. People look at their competition, their competitors, as the competition that they're trying to beat. Really, you got to be better than you were yourself the day before. Yeah. Learn from it, move on. So.
Yeah. That's awesome, dude. Well, I wanted to make sure I ask this because a lot of people might think like, or I remember when what was that app where people could talk in groups? Clubhouse. When Clubhouse first came out, there was like a Clubhouse group that it was like being in a small market, and I think we'll close here. But for a lot of people who live in Dallas, right? I want to make sure that like this is like primarily Dallas people who listen to this. For people who live here and are trying to start up a business or start a business, like one of the things you think about is like, okay, well, Dallas isn't New York, or Dallas isn't Los Angeles, or Dallas isn't Miami, or whatever, which is not going to be true in the next 2 years because everyone's moving here.
There's
But
7.3 million people in the DFW Metroplex.
dude, so okay, so one thing I want to talk, because you built a surf shop here, you did a magazine, you've done a lot of different things in a quote unquote small market area. For you, what are your thoughts on like the gripe against that? Like, do you even think it's a valid like a statement to say? No, right?
Do you know how many billionaires live in Dallas?
Thank you. That's what
Like,
literally.
It's just about going out and meeting people, because so those people are like, oh, it's a small market and you can't build anything. I have a buddy who sold his business to IBM for $2 billion that I met because I was out on the lake and was out at a boat dock that I randomly got invited to once. And it's like also one thing that most people don't think about. So I have a lot of toys. I'm a toy addict. I have like motorcycles, a boat, like all these different things.
Yeah.
But most people don't understand is when I bought my motorcycle, I bought my first one. I also buy things on very good deals. Like I look and look and look and look and look. And so when I bought my first motorcycle, I bought it for $1,500. And I told my buddy, who was the one that was getting me into motorcycles, let me ride his. And I was like, it'll pay for itself. Because the people that do these sort of things, they have money.
Wow.
So I'm going to meet somebody while I'm doing this. And it, first or second time out, it led to a website. Then it led to another thing. And then it was like, same with like the experiences. Like with my boat. Yeah, I pay a lot of money for it, but I'll take clients out on the boat.
Wow.
And then I have this client that they're really the ones that at the end of the day are paying for the boat. But I use it in a way that is something where I can connect with more people. And I'm constantly like, a lot of people are like, oh, no new friends, small circle, all this sort of stuff. Yeah, you want to keep a close group of people that you can really trust and that are good advisors. Also, the other, but at the same time, invite other people and do things with them. Don't spend majority of your time with them because you got to build those relationships. But that's another thing that is it made a huge difference in my career was when I started surrounding myself with different people. When I went from going away from the surf shop style things that I was doing at the time, and I started surrounding myself with other people that were successful entrepreneurs, that were that had the drive and had the passion and everything that I had, it made a world of difference. Because you are the average of the 5 people you surround yourself with the most. You don't know it, but you're subconsciously taking on traits of other people that are around you, even though you might not want to. Yeah. You're constantly you're really taking all of it in, even though you're not trying to, and you're like, oh, I'll never do that. You might not ever do that, but you're now okay with it. And things wear down on you over time. And then it's like, oh, I'm never gonna say yo. And then you find yourself a year later or 2 years later, and you're like, yo, what's up, man? And it's like, wait a second, 2 years ago, I said I'd never say that. Well, who were you surrounding yourself with? Who were you around? Because it is so small, but it starts to get in there. And then it's like, all right, well, how did I start doing this? Well, who else does that? This guy does that. Oh, well, I was around him a lot. Right. And so I started doing this. So making sure that you're surrounding yourself with positive people that have a good idea. My friends and I will have planning sessions about what we're going to do in our personal time. Dang. We have planning sessions on, all right, so what kind of activities are we doing? How can we maximize the most fun? I'll drive somewhere and people are like, oh, I don't have time to do that. I've driven to New Orleans for the weekend. I left at 6 p.m. on a Friday night, went to New Orleans, partied for Mardi Gras, got back in the car and was back at my desk. Back home by midnight Sunday and back at my desk at 8 a.m. Jeez. I've taken all sorts of trips on weekends, all sorts of different places, and people are like, oh, I could never do that. I don't have the time. I don't have the vacation time. If you want to do something, go do it. Yeah. You'll figure out a way to do it inside of any confines that you want to do. Or I've been working this summer. I worked on a deal with Can-Am where we would go and we'd create content for them for social media. And but I didn't want it to take any time away from the agency because they weren't paying full market rate. It was like for one of their beta platforms. And I was like, all right, well, this is something that I'm going to do on the weekends. I'm not going to let it take any time out of this, even though we're getting paid a decent amount of money, but I'm employing all my friends and we're going to ride side by sides and all of this stuff, but we're filming and everybody's like, oh man, that looked like a lot of fun. I'm like, yeah, but you don't understand. We did 4 takes to get that shot.
Right.
We did this. Like,
right.
It's still work. And then with the shot where you see everybody's all muddy and it's so much fun, there's 4 hours of pressure washing that you don't see. Like all of the different things, it takes so much time.
Yeah.
But if you want to make it happen, you'll make it happen. And so it's just maximize the day and maximize your life by going and doing it all. And you can do it. Just tell yourself you can.
Dude, I think that's the perfect way to wrap this up. And maximizing your life and maximizing your time can be done with all the things you've said today, like setting up the correct systems and having a good morning routine and reading and doing all these things that are so important to like actually bringing. And at the end of the day, like you said, just like you got to like plan out to go on a weekend or you got to do all this stuff. Like all of these things are just habits that you got to build that like, just like getting good at skateboarding, it's just going and doing it again, and you'll eventually get good at whatever you're trying to do. And I mean, if you don't get good, it's probably because you gave up. So I wanted to end this episode with if you could tell most of the people who listen to this are people who are either just starting out or maybe thinking about going in on something, or maybe they're in the beginning phases, because I'm in the beginning phases, so it's just naturally who watches it. For the person who is starting out or wants to do something but maybe is a little scared to or just hasn't done it, what's a piece of, I don't know, a little piece of advice you could give them that they can leave this podcast like, okay, I can do this?
Just believe in yourself. You can do anything that you want to do. All you got to do is just get out there and do it. Just keep going after it. But also make sure to look at it that the market will support it. Because a lot of times if you don't have the funding behind you and those sort of things to do it, do small steps. Like go small instead of going large and then having this huge loss. Go small. I went large and had a huge loss. And also make sure to just look at the little things that are going to happen, but make sure that you're always able to just go find something and just think creatively. I can't tell you, like, when I was first starting out, I honestly had more fun, as much or more fun that I have now after being able to get the things. Everybody thinks about it as things. It's all about the experiences and the memories that you create. And when you're on the hustle and on the grind and you're having to figure out creative ways to make things happen, that's where the best products come from. Is because you're having to get creative to figure out how to do something. So just get creative. Think about it. There's always a way around. You can go over a wall. You can go under a wall. You can go around a wall. You can go through a wall. You can go around it or through it or any of that. You're going to get through the wall. Don't think that, it's a wall. I got to stop now. Figure out a way around it. Google the hell out of it. You will find somebody. You think your situation is unique. It's not unique. Somebody else has been through it in some form or fashion.
Yeah.
And you're able to take pieces from that and reach out for help. That's probably one of the biggest things. When you're having a hard time with something, reach out to somebody. We've never lived in an age like we do today where you can DM somebody who's doing what you want to do and ask for advice.
Yeah.
People want to help. All you got to do is ask for it. Just reach out and ask somebody. When I started the magazine, I remember reading a book that was like how to start a magazine for dummies. Like I tried to look everywhere. I reached out to other people that ran magazines. I reached out to the competition and talked to them just to learn. And so just ask for help and find somebody will want to help you. If you're passionate, you'll be able to tell. I can tell if you're passionate about what you want to do. If you're passionate and you ask for my help legitimately, even though I have 100 other things going on, I'm going to find time for somebody that I feel like passionately actually wants to go after something to mentor and help them out. I'll spend an hour. Hey, here's the 3 things. I've even had it happen where I've let employees go and they ask me and they're like, hey, I want to start like freelancing or doing something. Would you come meet up with me? And I'm like, yeah, I'll come meet up with you. And you need a contract here. Let me get you a contract here. You're going to need this. Here's how you should charge for it. And it's like, people are like, but they're kind of like competition now. And I'm like, no, there's enough for everybody.
Exactly.
Give people what they need and allow them to continue to go. Like, it's not about competition. I don't care. I'm not going to hold a grudge against anybody. I was talking to somebody about that earlier today, and I was like, I think there's only one person that I can think of that I don't want to be around. Other than that, I mean, I don't have any bad blood with anybody.
Wow.
Because go let them do their thing. Go live your life and go be as successful as you can be. Dude.
Wow. That's amazing. Well, I've had a great time talking to you, learning, and really, I really do appreciate you coming on. I know that like this isn't like, you know, Joe Rogan experience or anything like that. So I say this to every guest that has come on so far, because you really are doing me a favor and you're doing the platform a favor by coming on. And I know there's not a lot that's being reciprocated. So I highly appreciate you coming on and talking. I really do.
I just enjoy talking with good people who want to build something, because that's how I started out. I just wanted to build something, and I wanted to build a surf shop in Dallas, a paddleboard shop, because I wanted to get more people outside. Because I'm originally from Portland, Oregon.
Oh, wow.
And being from Oregon, like, I was very big in the outdoors. And so being here, I just lost that. And so it was like, how can I build something to help get people outside? Because people move here and they're like, oh, there's nothing to do outside. Like, it's just flat there. And I'm like, you obviously haven't tried hard enough, because I go mountain bike on mountain bike trails that have big jumps and steep stuff and everything that's here in Dallas. You want to go kayaking? There's a whitewater park up in Oklahoma City. It's an 1.5-hour drive away from here. I've kayaked in my backyard. Wait till it rains an inch. Trust me, the goalies get going here in Dallas. I've been on the news multiple times for paddleboarding in the middle of the Trinity River when it's like flooded.
You. And that's you. You're the person who's been on the news.
I actually, one time I planned it. I was like, we're going to get on the news today. And my brother and my friend are like, what do you mean? I was like, watch this. Grab that bright colored jacket. Put them on. Got on paddleboards. Next thing you know, we're on NBC that evening because somebody was up there with a camera. And I was like, these guys are paddleboarding down the Trinity River, and isn't it? And then people are like, it's so dirty and nasty in there. And I'm like, well, you didn't. I mean, so like, just go do it.
What people judging, man?
I didn't get anything from it.
Right.
You're sitting there on your couch. Like,
you're getting obesity. You're getting actually fit. Man, that's hilarious. Well, for real, I really do appreciate you.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me on. It was great talking with you. And I like the setup's awesome. Show's cool.
Thank you.
I like it. So I appreciate you inviting me out.
No, for sure, dude. Can you go ahead and look in the lens and just let the people know where they can find you and where they can reach out to Lokal Media House? Because I'm sure after listening to this, they want to work with you. So let them know where to find you.
So you can find me on Instagram at Danny Braught. It's like you brought something with an A instead of an O. And then lokalmedia.com. It's LOKAL media.com is where you can find me. And it's just Danny at lokalmedia.com if you want to send me an email. I'm always open to talking, helping anybody out. All about helping people and just guiding in the right direction. So
that's amazing. Well, this has been another another Hesipode, I was about to say, of Hustle Culture. That's literally what I was going to say. It's been another episode of Hustle Culture. Thank you for coming, and thank all of you for tuning in and watching. If you enjoyed it, if you liked it, please make sure to share it with a friend who you think it could benefit. Clearly, if you're this far in, you've enjoyed it. So go ahead and share it, and go ahead and subscribe and all that good stuff. But y'all have a great day, and depending on when I post this, have a great week or weekend. Enjoy.